Good. Awesome. Welcome, everybody. I'd like to welcome everyone to the Wednesday, May 27th, 2026 regular board meeting and budget presentation. I will call the meeting to order. Please stand and say pledge of allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice. All right.
Can I share in addition to the consent agenda? So earlier today, we received a student travel request for our students going to DC for the National History Day. And so they leave the 13th and 16th, which is before the next time together. And so want to make sure that you knew that you were going as well.
Can I ask a quick question about that? I know they raise funds to go initially for some of that stuff. Oh no, that was for going their DC trip. So that, how do they get funded for going on?
As a district, we're supporting them
Okay,
because they're our students, so
okay,
it's, and I think it's,
Sorry, it's akin to students making state.
yeah,
yeah, okay, that's what I was wondering, just like a state tournament. Great.
this happens to be in DC.
Mm-hmm. Well, dang,
All right, any questions? Okay. Can I get a motion to adopt the agenda?
I'll make a motion to adopt the consent agenda. Second.
Wait,
It's
the
an
agenda
agenda.
first.
The agenda first?
Yeah.
Oh, I'll make a motion to adopt the agenda.
Yeah.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Can I get a motion to adopt the consent agenda?
I'll motion to adopt the consent agenda.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Awesome. First item of business is recognition. We have the Masonic Lodge Educator of the Year. Happy to have Mr. Dick Dykema here. Decima.
Mr. Decima, please come on up, and then if we could have Mr. Palmer join us. So we have our Educator of the Year is Mr. Steve Palmer, and the Linden and Ferndale Masonic Lodge number 56 always graces us with their presence and the perpetual plaque and a certificate. And so what I want you to know is, just as you were identified with the Thrive Awards, your colleagues and folks in the district recognize the great work that you're doing and want you to know that, and we want to memorialize that. Perpetual plaque. Awesome. And so I'm going to congratulate you. Thank you. This is
the certificate.
awesome. Okay. And then we have the plaque itself.
There is a renewal scholarship. And from Washington Masonic Charities of up to $1,000. And that's yours for the asking.
Okay, and that happens at the end of this year, correct?
It's at the end of this year. The requirements are a 3.0 and in your scholarship, and this from a lodge of Masons.
Okay.
And so a lot of people overlook this $1,000, but it's found money.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Mhm.
So if you're gonna go do some more schooling.
Yeah.
Funding. And so you'll see it actually right there. It's right. Okay, and that will go in your building. And then I'm gonna have you give him this check.
Okay.
Okay.
And a check by the treasurer of the Linden Ferndale Masonic Lodge, number 56. Payable to you for $2,000.
Oh, my goodness.
Wow.
That's not good.
And
I'm gonna give this to him, right?
sure.
Okay, awesome. One time. Thank you for having.
Oh, yeah.
All right,
Okay.
I'm one way to Ferndale, I would like to thank the board for making time for us. I know that you have a very busy schedule and I appreciate the time that you've taken.
Thank you for participating and supporting our schools.
Yep, you are always welcome. We look forward to seeing you next year. As well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Good to see you.
Good to see you.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Can I get a quick
Right,
photo of you
this
two
guy?
both?
Oh, yeah. Perfect.
Bring the superintendent.
Right.
All right. This is for you, Bri.
This hangs.
This here, this will stay.
The superintendent's.
Do we keep it or does it go in the building?
It'll stay at the building level.
Yeah, so this will be in your building. Awesome,
Yeah.
awesome.
That's great.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Okay, you're quite welcome.
Yeah. Guess I'll hang on to it for now. All right. I mean, I put it in the.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
I think you just ignore hard time. Okay, the second item is the Getting Coalition recognition. And this is presented by Adrian Samara.
Can you help me? Trying to over here.
I'm just, we're just gonna do a recognition. And for our PLC Guiding Coalition groups. So as you're aware, PLC teams have come and they've presented to you and they sort of shared. Our guiding coalitions are the teacher leader groups in each building that really spearhead that work. They work with their principals to do that. And so we just wanted to recognize that work that has happened over the course of this year. So that these teams really help provide structure for those meetings. They work with the principals in their buildings to help set improvement goals. They're always looking at student learning, thinking about how we can get better, and they're really leading their colleagues. So Michelle couldn't be here, but Jeff and Sarah are her Guiding Coalition her Guiding Coalition team members, and she just wanted to recognize this year a couple of things. They helped launch a new PLC structure. So they had both KA content teams and collaborative teams that went across vertical lines. And so she's really proud of that work that they did together there. Thanks, Sarah. And Irene as well. Really wanted to recognize a few things about their team. They're particularly dedicated. They have leaders from each grade level. And they this year have really been focused on tier 2 supports. So coming and thinking about those students who need more help with their grade level content has been a big focus of the work of Irene this year.
And you probably remember a couple months ago, this was the staff highlight that Robert and I shared about, but our guiding coalition is kind of the hands and feet of the work that we do in the school. So they are leading teams day in, day out. And then every Friday they're putting together the agenda and making sure that data is ready to look at and guiding those discussions and protocols. And then Robert and I also lean on them pretty heavily to be kind of the boots on the ground. And when we're wrestling around with the idea of tier 2 or tier 3, they're the people that we run those ideas by. Super grateful for their leadership.
Now,
kind of disappointed. We went in and moved all of your guiding coalition pictures around.
We fixed
I put them back.
The nice slide.
Disappointed, but not surprised either. Yeah, our guiding coalition, really doubled down on those efforts. This year within the different departments. I have to give a big shout out to Andrea Ames. She took that on as the teacher leader. She organized the meeting. She ran the meetings. And it just really increased the buy-in with the work that the team was doing, making critical decisions around instruction and interventions and just working towards that alignment in our building. And so awesome step with this group this year.
Just want to highlight again the improvement in the work that our PLCs have done. We've had them for many years now, and I think over the past few years, just the dedication of these teacher teams to really improving that work and making sure that we're doing the best we can for our students has made a huge difference for us. I think a lot of what we're seeing in our growth is a direct result of this work and these teachers. So many of them are getting to school very early in the morning and for a very little stipend, and I really appreciate their efforts.
And kudos to Adrian for that.
Yeah.
And thank you.
This is a shift over time. We used to have separate planning coalitions and leadership teams, and because funding, people got creative, and I think now their leadership teams are serving in that capacity as well.
Thank you.
Awesome, thank you so much. All right, next item is public comment. I will read the policy here. So our board has adopted policy and procedure 1400, meeting conduct, order of business and quorum. This policy procedure is available on the district website. Per this policy, board meetings must be conducted in civil, orderly, and business-like manner. This means that whether we are school directors, district staff, students, members of the community, or some other guest, we must all follow the same standard of civility during school board meetings. The total time for public comment period is 30 minutes. Each speaker has a maximum of 3 minutes. There's no mechanism whereby a speaker can donate all or some of their time to another speaker. No individual may speak more than once per regular meeting, even if there is time remaining. Public comment period is an opportunity for the board to listen to individuals on educational issues, and board members are encouraged to listen attentively. If public comments are to express concerns about specific students, the board asks that you not name the students, as naming the student could be an invasion of privacy, violate school district policy related to harassment, intimidation, bullying, or discrimination, or create a material and substantial disruption of the orderly operation of the board meeting. Public comment period is not for the time for dialogue between the board and public. The board will not respond to statements, questions, or challenges made during public comment period, and there's no back and forth dialogue. Please know the board's silence is neutral. It is neither a signal or agreement. Sorry, it is neither a signal of agreement or disagreement with the speaker's remarks. Although the board will not engage in dialogue, the board chair must ask the speaker to clarify a clarifying question. It is also possible that school district staff will contact the speaker at a later time to follow up on an issue raised during public comment period. Finally, please remember that your words have impact to you, not the school district are responsible for your words. We caution all speakers it is possible for your statements could violate the rights of others under various laws, including laws protecting privacy, laws prohibiting defamation, and if you are unsure of the legal effect of your remarks, you should seek legal guidance. Okay, our standard policy is that everyone that needs to speak must sign the document before. I know there's a couple things on the agenda that we're going to discuss today. There will be another opportunity to voice public comment. So with that being said, we have one speaker tonight, Mr. Bruce Bowen.
Hello, I'm Bruce Bauman, and I'm here tonight to talk about the idea of an online dictionary for acronyms and initialisms. This would be used by the school district and everybody employed by the school district. It's not an original idea of mine. I've seen this put into practice. The idea is, especially when you get a bigger group of people, you have different groups within, for this example, within the school district. You might have the bus garage, you have the coaches, you have the faculty, office staff, you got medical, you got admin, and they all have different acronyms and initialisms that they all use. And I think it would be helpful because I've seen it here at coming to these several meetings. I see new board members and current board members asking what this acronym or initialism is. And including conversations with some of you to bring something up. It's like, okay, I ask a question, I get a description. I've already forgot it now, and that was 10 minutes ago. Also, I see, you see presentations on the PowerPoint that there's an acronym or initialism, but there's nothing in parentheses behind it to give that description. It seems normal to have that at least once, whether it's on a PowerPoint in a presentation or on handouts. That way you have something to refer to if that comes up later in that document or in a presentation. So the thought is to send an email out to everybody within the school district that works for the school district and ask for input. This can all be done on an Excel spreadsheet. So in some of these acronyms, initialisms, they can have the same, but they might mean something to another department. In one line, you'd have the acronym or initialism. The next line, you'd have the definition of that. And then what department it came from. That way it's a little easier to clarify what it means and why it means that from that department.
About 30 seconds.
And then any notes if further explanation is needed on another line. That's all I have. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Chair, I have a motion.
Okay.
I would like to motion the board allow for public comment at this time, or a public comment period, and if there's a second, I will speak to my motion.
Is there a second? So the procedure, if no one seconds, then it's not allowed, but can she speak to her motion or why she wants to, or is that a dispute? Let's have that as a board director item at the end of the meeting during our big comment period.
It's unfortunate that we have members of the public here that have made the time to come out this way, and we're not allowing them to speak.
I appreciate that, but it's always been our procedure that if folks need to sign up before the meeting starts.
I would please like that on the record that during public comment session, that we are not allowing members of the public to comment.
Okay, first report, food service report.
It's dinner time, right? Wow, keep seeing pictures, they look amazing. I've been so impressed. Thank you. Well, there's 16, so them and then whoever else. Oh.
There. Jacob?
Thanks, Erin.
Yes,
Yes, thank you.
I've always asked for.
I mean, it's 5 o'clock. Yeah. So I am Erin, I'm the food director. It's my first year. I worked here in 2015 to 2020 as a lunch lady. And then went to the hospital for 5 years and now I'm back, which is great. The overview, health department, training, staffing, meals, scratch made cooking, and the future of food service. So every year, at the beginning of the year, we have to email the health department to request our 2 inspections. After COVID, a lot of times we were lucky to get one. So it's important that you have a paper trail that you've reached out. We've had
inspections at all schools so far this year. Middle school was in October, well, they're all in October. We had 0 high risk factors, so essentially a perfect score. They came back for the second inspection last week at IRE. No high risk, so it's great. I'll be expecting them at the middle school and high school before the end of the school year.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yeah.
You said you have to have 2 inspections, but you don't always get them?
Nope.
They just don't follow up or they
They
don't
don't.
request them?
Yeah, we have to request them. They're supposed to do one, but, and we're supposed to have 2 every year.
Wow.
Usually 6 months apart, so they usually come, like I said, at the beginning of the year and then towards the end. The permit's good for a year, but we're supposed to have the 2. So I know after COVID, there was years we went with that one,
Really?
so, yeah.
That's kind
Yeah,
of okay. Great.
I mean, it's not okay, but.
Well, it's okay but you guys are good.
I mean, the stress level when they show
Yeah.
up, you're like, "Ah." So yeah, we don't love that, but it's important that, they come through and see that we're
Exactly.
doing everything how we're supposed to be doing it
Mhm.
for food safety. All of my staff went through training this year. We did our civil rights training. They all completed and signed it. We went over meal patterns and compliancy. The National School Lunch Program, we have a lot of guidelines to follow. As far as, primarily a lot of that's on me. It's saturated fats, sodium, sugars, primarily added sugars. They're really trying to get away from that. And then we went over some of our new scratch made recipes that we're doing. So here's our meal count. This year versus last year, we're up. House Bill 1238 helps with that a lot as far as at the elementary school. Everyone eats free in that building. So we got a really big bump in our participation. And then our lunch count, they're up. But the high school, we're not up. We actually went down, but I think more students are participating in Running Start or other programs and they're not on campus. So that's a bummer. But our numbers have climbed since I've offered more grab and go items. Kids don't want to wait. They want to grab what they want and then go. And then this just talks about House Bill 1238. It says it's available for schools with students K through 4, but since we have the TK up to 5th grade, since it's under the building, they all get to participate in that provision. And I found out that we are approved for it for next year as well. So that's great. And here's some of our scratch made items. I believe Rob brought in the salmon last year or 2 years ago. The chili, which is still Bobby's recipe at the middle school that we've had for years. Clear cut casserole, the pulled pork hoagies with coleslaw, chicken fajitas, spaghetti meatballs, chicken pot pies new this year, and the lasagna. And the chicken enchiladas, we played with that a little bit. Rob started it with the green sauce. I've done it with the green sauce. Kids prefer the red sauce. So. And then here's like the grab and go, and we offer these at the middle and high school. Just, kids don't want to wait. So wrap salads, parfaits, bagels, croissant sandwiches, protein boxes new this year. We go through about 40 to 45 PB&J staff lunches at the high school daily.
Wow.
Yeah. A lot of them are sports kids because it's something that they can take and have items for later, which is great. The new hoagies and the new Thai chicken salad, which you have in front of you.
I feel like I'm on Shark Tank.
These are the new items. So it's the bento box, the Thai chicken salad, the hoagies. And I found dough that I can bring in. I thaw it overnight. I proof it in the morning and we bake it every day. So it's a fresh baked hoagie.
That's cool.
Smells amazing. We did the sweet Thai chili wrap. Kids Some liked it. Wasn't enough for me to continue making. It has like sriracha mayo and chili, the sweet chili sauce, so. And the tuna apple croissant. There's the salad, and that's the bento box, so it has kind of like a little charcuterie with fruit, veggies, crackers, hard-boiled egg. And there's the hoagies. So you guys have an Italian and a turkey pesto one. These are just some of our trays that we've done this year. The ribicue they love, it's like a McRib. Tater tot casserole, that's a hit or miss item, but. And then chicken fajitas, and these are all scratch made, these we make from scratch, so, and. I'd like to do more this year, with a learning year, but I've brought in a few new items and new ideas, so. And asked my team to offer suggestions and collaborate with me on that. There's the chicken pot pie. I had to get a chicken cookie cutter. Lasagna. The lasagna's been a big hit with students and staff.
That's from scratch too.
Yes. So we get commodity items, like we get beef crumbles and, yeah, so it's a way to use those in recipes. Yeah. We had our Thanksgiving holiday meal, which is always a favorite. The little pumpkin pie tarts are amazing. And we make those in-house too. In our salad bar, we've had some fun fruit, kiwi, pears, grapes, strawberries, always Goblet apples when they're available. I try to only do canned once a week, just fresh is better. As of January this year, I was allowed to bring in 2% milk versus the non-fat chocolate and 1%. And it was amazing how many, even at the elementary school, noticed. The kids were like, this is great. I can bring in whole milk next year, so I think I'm gonna try to do that. As far as the added sugars coming down the chocolate milk might, which that might be a riot, but I'm working around the added sugars. So that's gonna come into effect next year with the added sugars and the sodium that we're gonna have to cut back on. And we're gonna continue with more scratch made cooking. I'm always open to suggestions or things you think we should try. And then different grab and go options. Just because if they're in the middle and high school, they're still popular. It used to be like a 70-30, where the 70% would get the hot serve. Well, now it's a good 50-50, or they just want the one item that they can grab a milk and go.
And are all items the same cost?
Yeah, it all has to fit into the compliances. So there's five components. There's your meat or meat alternative, your grain, your fruit, your veggie, and your milk. They changed it. You only have to take 4 because some people can't drink milk. So as long as they hit the 4 components, they're covered. And then it's a reimbursable meal through the funding.
Because also one of my friends, like his son has a gluten allergy. Is there also options for?
We do, so here, we do offer that.
Mhm.
If they get a care plan put in place, so they'd have to go to their doctor, have a note that they're gluten intolerant. They work with the nurse and get a care plan. And then, because I do have one at IRE right now that's gluten free.
Mhm.
So, yeah. And none of this would be possible without my team, and they're great. Losing Miss Missy at the end of the school year, and Pam, I believe, is taking that position at the middle school. Pam's number that's for 7. So great opportunity for her. Yeah.
Great. Great. Thank you.
A lot of advancements from last time.
It's fun. We're having fun. Yeah. And if you're a student here from IRE to the high school and you see all the same stuff, we want
I
to,
still don't see the sheet pan pizza, so good job.
yeah, they do that.
Yeah, it's very back in the day.
I love the square pizza.
Yeah.
Probably because the sauce is sugar, but Things have changed,
Or
so, yeah.
The creativity and continuing this,
Presentation.
the scratch made and then the color is, yeah, it's great.
Well, after working in healthcare for the last 5 years, real food matters
Yeah.
So- versus processed, so the more scratch cooking we can do, the better. But that's the goal.
Thank you.
That's so awesome. That's great.
Yeah. All right,
It's salmon, which is amazing. So-
they don't like, yeah, it's rough, they don't appreciate it yet.
Hiring in the middle school and the high school?
So just at the middle and high school.
Okay.
They're feeding 520 to 530 at lunch, and they don't have the capacity or the kitchen to
Gotcha.
support the wish.
Yes. But they get the hot meal
They get the hot meal, yeah.
and sack lunch.
On Fridays, they
Yeah.
offer the sack lunch, yeah.
Well, my son got back from outdoor ed and I think they wish they had that food there. So that's the feedback we got.
That's-
It's been fun. I'm enjoying myself.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yes, we didn't ask you. How are you liking it?
I love it.
Great.
I came back, right?
Thank you so much. All right, next order of business is school board reorganization. We are happy to present or happy to call forward Nada. Yes, come on.
Now you're in the hot seat.
Looks like it.
So we have a little. Yeah, yeah. Can you see okay?
It is quite bright, but it's beautiful.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for signing up. I guess we'll kick off and maybe I'll ask the first question. There you go. Sometimes we'll have soccer games going on back here. It's very exciting.
Nice view though.
Mhm. Yeah, so first question, just kind of tell us about yourself, your training, interests, experience on board policies, community, and your school activities and why.
Well, I've been living in Whatcom County since 1999. So my kids all went to Blaine and then they went to Running Start. So I've been, busy with some school activities. My daughter was in Girl Scouts for several years. And now that they're all gone, I've been doing mostly our neighborhood association, been doing the little library over there. I've also been working on the Interpreters Society, which is like an interpreter, you would not know, but it is like a Northwest Interpreter and Translator Society in Washington State and other states in Idaho, Oregon, Alaska, Washington, and so on. So I have my first presentation that I just did as a presenter, instructor, so that went very great. Other than that, I've been a member of boards for a while, but now I'm just a member. So other than that, I'm a contractor. I've worked I'm a court certified interpreter. I'm medically and authorized and also social services authorized by DSHS. And so I work full-time, part-time as a remote language interpreter. That's what I do.
Amazing.
I'll go next. So welcome for joining us this evening. So just was wondering if you could describe your experience, your training, your interests, how they can contribute to the improvement of our district. And if so, like, how does it pertain to your view of the roles and responsibilities of a school board?
I would say, I have not been on a school board back in Blaine. But I have, since my kids are gone now, I have had a lot of experience dealing, as a parent back in the day. And so I am willing,
since I have, time, I'm no longer, raising kids, I can try to, contribute from my past experience here, on the school board here. And I did serve on some boards, here and there, not in this capacity, nothing like on a school board. I'm not back in Blaine, but, so I've been, mostly kind of willing to contribute to, serve, to do some, community work and put in, my 2 cents worth.
Awesome, thank you.
Yeah.
I have a question. Going off script a little bit here. The school district had a bond that failed twice in a row. What do you think that the school district should do differently to change that up?
That would be a very, very tough sell. Because a lot of people in the area where I'm from, there are a lot of 55 plus communities. And so they are, some of them are, I don't know, but a lot of them are on fixed income and they are not very wealthy. So any kind of a levy, that you want to impose would be a very tough sell that I'm not, I don't know, but I'm willing to bet that it would be a very tough sell and people would not be willing. So I don't know if there is a reserve fund. I remember back in the day, I heard Blaine had something like that people that are school board members were unwilling to tap into because I'm not sure, they were just kind of afraid. And so, yeah, if there is anything like that, I think it would be very hard. So I don't know if there is really anything that can be done, it simply, will be, especially with the old prices, going through the roof, it will be very, very, very tough.
Thank you. I think we've seen that absolutely.
It is just what it is.
To meet you,
Nice to meet you too.
can you identify any commitments which might prevent you from attending regular meetings, participating in workshops, reviewing study materials? We get our meeting minutes beforehand. We do all review those before, so we're not blindsided. And we like to be educated so that we're not just reviewing the stuff as it comes on the screen. So is there anything that prevents you from being present at meetings? They're every other Wednesday night, usually at 5, sometimes 4 p.m.
So it said on the website that it is actually at 6, but it is at 5, correct?
It is.
It's at 5?
It is.
So yeah, I'm, maybe 15 minutes away from here, so it's not that bad. I can always make it. If there is a foot of snow on the road, then I will not make it. And so I will not even try. But other than that, I have no problem, coming here every other week. And so, yeah, I have time enough because I don't work outside home, only at home. So I can always come in, I can review whatever is needed from home. There is plenty of time in the evening for me to do that. So I have no problem with that.
Great.
Yeah.
Any more questions?
So you mentioned your children went to Blaine.
They did.
So what is your experience with the Meridian School District as far as our strengths and our weaknesses?
My daughter, she was doing running start, so she had to register here for her senior year, but then after that, she never actually went here. And so, what I've seen is that it is a fairly small school district, bigger than Blaine, it seems to me, but still, and it's kind of a, rather rural. So maybe it doesn't have a lot of support from a large industries, like in Blaine, you have Cherry Point Refinery, and they're kind of supporting, they're paying taxes into that and all that. So for me, from what I can see here, there isn't that, maybe there, but not that many. And so maybe it is kind of a, one will draw back. It doesn't have very many large industries on that scale to support it. And so that's, I'm not entirely sure if that's even so, but that's what it seems to me. It's definitely, compared to like Seaholm, can probably tell the difference. But I've been living here in Bellingham in the Cordata area for 9 years now. So yes, I can see it. And mostly I see the kids going to the Cordata Elementary School and that. So I'm kind of a little familiar with that, with the school down there. But with school district, I'm here to learn. So, yeah.
When we all ran for office, we go online and we say, hey, I'm Jana and I'm running for office because if you were to say like a public statement of why if you were running out loud, what would be like your catchphrase or, what would be your, why are you so interested?
Well, I got a note, the postcard in the mail, in fact, and I was like, I can go ahead and, apply. I can always try to do some public service. I'm working over in the notice, which is like the Interpreter Society to advance, to help their training and everything, because I am one. And so whatever works, whatever I can do to help, the fellow interpreters, I'm willing to do that. And here as well, whatever I can do to help advance, to help the community, help the kids, my kids are gone, they're no longer school kids, but there are other kids and you need to support them because they, you need them, they need to pay into your social security eventually.
Mm-hmm.
And so you will need to get the good education and get, to be good, productive members of society. And so whatever I can do on my part, to help out that cause, that's why.
That's very nice.
Yes. That's my motivation.
Do you have any questions for us?
Cordata Elementary School is not listed on the website.
That's for the Bellingham School District.
Also, they're in Bellingham.
Yeah.
Also.
Ours is IRE.
Our elementary is 6 miles away from.
Yes, the Irene Writer, yeah. How come the area number 4 is the smallest? The District 4 is the smallest of the 5.
So 5 director districts are recalibrated every 10 years based on the census
Oh.
to have them balanced with population. So that might be more densely populated, but with area, it's smaller.
Yeah. Yeah, but let's look, it's the smallest. Okay. So the other, they were like you said, meetings, trainings and others. So how often does that happen? If the board members meet outside or, come and support the games, the sports games or other events, how often does that happen? Or is it during the day or is it in the evening?
Yeah, typically in the evenings. I mean, our meetings are twice a
Mhm.
month. And then we have training sessions every now and then as a board. We'll have executive sessions like twice a year to evaluate a district employee, the superintendent. We have the WASA conference that happens every November.
Mhm.
It alternates between Bellevue, well, the last year was in Seattle, so Seattle and Spokane. And then we have, trainings as a board. I think we've done one in a year maybe. So, and then obviously all of us are encouraged to be at events. I know you guys are seeing your presentations. I have kids that play basketball and volleyball, so I go to those. So we're all kind of doing different things and being part of the community. Anything I missed there?
Graduation.
Graduation, yeah.
Right, but how often is all that? And is it during the day or is it in the evening mostly or when?
Very.
Kind of vary.
Mm.
And it depends on each of us have different things we're drawn to or invited to.
Okay.
Just to represent the board and support our students. there's always something going on with PTA, and IRE has a lot of events, middle school, high school, student focused leadership roles, a lot of different opportunities for us to be present. The community does like to see the board likes to see the community.
But is it something that's mandatory, that is, you have to, or, just kind of encouraged, but you don't have to attend?
Some of the things are mandatory outside of,
Graduation's mandatory.
Okay.
and our trainings and our different things like that are mandatory.
But if
Yeah.
it doesn't work, like if there's a training that doesn't work, then we would coordinate it and
Okay.
do a date that worked with everyone, so. And like going to sporting events, obviously that's not mandatory, but,
Okay,
Yeah, but we have like continuing, basically like kind of like continuing educations, certificate,
oh, yeah.
certs.
Certification,
Yeah,
yeah.
that we have to do, so those are mandatory with the state. Some of those are online, some we do as a group.
okay.
I would say most are after business hours, but there is opportunities during school time to do that, so.
Yeah.
Like Winter Wishes, we all went last year and dressed up and had a fun time, so.
I was on campus this morning for track send off.
Mhm.
We have soccer send off this week. We have
Yeah,
some different opportunities to be present.
we're a pretty silly group, we dress up a lot.
We're not opposed to themes.
Awesome. Do you have any more questions for us?
Mostly, that I was about the schedule, how often is there anything going on, during daytime hours? Because I am usually logged on, and I can take, time off here and there, but it is mostly that I do, I work from 10 till 5 or so, give or take, Monday through Friday. And then, but that's just, being on call, because I am not, on the clock. It's not on the clock, if I'm not working, then I don't get paid. So, yeah, that's how that works, but it's a lot more flexible, so it's much better. But I don't know if you know how that works in,
Yeah.
this line of work, but that's just how it is. Yeah.
So would you be able to attend the 4 o'clock?
So is it at 4, or is it at 5, or is it at 6?
We have 4 o'clock.
We have
meetings
4 o'clock
sometimes,
meetings sometimes.
but our meetings are at 5 o'clock.
Okay,
So sometimes we have an executive session or have to at 4.
okay. So how often does that happen?
It depends. Sometimes we may need to discuss something that's private
Mhm.
and we just have to just decide that randomly.
Okay,
It depends on the issues. There are 2 times during the year when it's required. You would know those ahead of time,
Yeah.
but sometimes things do surface that need the board's attention, and so it would warrant having an executive session.
yeah, it's not
It's
not a
it's
big
regular.
deal. No.
Yeah, probably 6 times a year.
Yeah,
That I think, yeah.
yeah.
Awesome. Any more questions for us?
Well, I was mostly wondering about that, the trainings or other meetings, at what time, because it says on website, 6, so then I'm wondering, if it's 5, but then it's at 4. So I'm like, okay, what time? But it is fine, really, it's not huge deal.
Well, that's good feedback. We'll make sure that gets changed.
Okay.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right, so it's my understanding to fill the board seat, we need a motion and a second, and then we will do a roll call vote. So can I get a motion?
I motion to approve Nana to District 4 position.
Can I get a second? What does that mean when we go back to it again?
I think we have to reach out to the ESD and tell them that we need support the building seat.
Okay, Nana, thank you so much for coming tonight.
Sure,
I very much appreciate your time.
Of course, thank you.
Thank you, Nana.
Nada.
On to new business. First review, US history, CWP, and civics core instructional materials. This is Adrian Samara presenting.
Good evening. So we are presenting a proposal for a core curriculum to the board for adoption. So this is for US history, CWP, which is current world problems, and civics. Just as a reminder, and I think we have some new board members, and maybe I haven't been here once we've done this, our first one this year. Core curriculum adoption process. So core curriculum are materials that are used for kind of the basic instruction. And policy 2020 outlines that criteria for that. And we did review 2020 earlier this year, so I think many of you are familiar with that. The way that it works is our identification committee, which is this group here, plus we've had about 5 other people who are part of this committee. Our content experts, so social studies teachers. We spend some time together before we even look at materials, studying best practice, looking at the standards, looking at research. They do a lot of work to kind of take all of those pieces of information about what is best practice, what does good instruction look like for that subject, and then develop criteria. And in addition, that criteria lines up as well with what's in the board policy around what's required for core materials. So there's a lot of work that goes into just deciding what we're looking for before we start looking at materials. At that point, this team looks at a variety of different materials. I think like 7 or 8 different things we looked through to kind of evaluate materials up against those criteria that they're looking for. A couple of these, we actually had an opportunity, and they'll talk a little bit about that, piloted them with some students. So they did a few units and lessons with students to see for our top materials how they went. And really, I just want to emphasize how much work that the team puts into really trying to find the best materials that are out there. So this committee makes a recommendation to our instructional materials committee. And that instructional materials committee is a separate group from this. That committee reviews their proposal against the required items in the board policy. So that's the document that's in there that looks kind of like this, that has all the board policy elements. This is the evidence from the team, and then the instructional materials committee takes a look at that as well. And they're just double checking to make sure that in fact there is alignment between those required elements and materials. And then we'll bring them to the board, and the board makes the final approval of curriculum materials. Any questions just about the process that we've been through? So these are the criteria that are in the board policy. I'm not going to read them out loud to you, but you can see them there. So when you look at the review, you'll see that we're talking about each of these. A couple things that really stand out here. You'll see there are a number of criteria that are about accessibility. So how are these materials good for all students? And so that's really something that we're looking at. There's a variety of different elements here. They align to the standards, some other things. So the team is really looking to see materials that we're choosing are helping us to get to these things. A new thing that we added this year to our criteria was we actually did some surveying of students beforehand about what was important to them for instructional materials. So we asked a couple of questions of students to see what things really stood out to them about effective materials and what they were looking for. And this also helped the group to kind of inform some of the things they're looking for. So things such as projects were really important to kids. So when we were looking at materials, we were looking, what is the quality of the projects that are in here? Because kids felt like that was important. The questions about what helps when you're learning, you can see some things that stood out there. kids really like a lot of visuals and those things help them. Different ways to show what they learned. So when we're looking at assessments. Is it all just a paper pencil test or are there different kinds of projects and things? So some of those, what kids told us, we also pulled into what we were looking for. Okay. So we have two publishers that we're proposing. PCI is what we're going to be proposing for fifth grade, and that's Social Studies Alive. And then Traverse is what we are proposing for our secondary schools. So we'll talk first about TCI and just share a little bit of the things that really stood out to us in these materials, and I'll let Lisa kind of talk a little bit about that as well. Some of the strengths that really came out here, they're really well, all of the things we looked at are aligned with the standards. There's some inquiry projects in here. Now, if you want to talk to any of these before I read them all, you want to share your note card? Why don't you share your note card? She's scared.
I just wrote down some things that really stood out to me. I taught 3 lessons, also looked at the curriculum overall, and throughout the 3 lessons, these were the big things that stood out to me. I really like the adjustable reading levels. They have text to speech audio, so students can listen to the text online or read it in textbook format. It comes in both Spanish and English text versions. Each unit has an inquiry question and project for the students. So as they go through each of the lessons, they're gathering information to do that final project. And then with each of the lessons, there's an assessment that students can take at the end. Right now, it aligns with our current GLAD materials that we're already using with students. Those are our support for English learners materials that we have for students. Differentiated with text support, picture clues, and also enrichment activities. There's workbook pages for students to capture ideas and notes. Vocabulary activities come with each of the lessons. Workbooks that look like this that kids are working in. Each of the lessons that I taught had lesson connections to school and to the 5th graders. And even current events that they can then do research on that are happening currently right now. There's videos within the slide presentations, graphics within the texts, pictures, images. The lessons are easily adaptable to shorten for a teacher or lengthen with, like I said, the enrichment activities. There's also a TCI social studies stories textbook, smaller than this, that includes short supplementary readings to deepen the core topic. And they include primary sources, biographies, and diverse perspectives. And online, there's even some hands-on games and activities for students to do. These were a few of the engagement activities that I did with the students. I really, really liked how each lesson started with the engagement activity. It brought it to the students' level. It made them kind of think about the topic in their own lives. And it was a fun activity. So one example was thinking about unrest and tension in their own lives as a student and relating that back to unrest and tension during the Revolutionary War or the events that led up to the Revolutionary War. Another activity was the Bill of Rights, and the students did like a mini skit, and we just did this today, where they perform a little skit for each other in the classroom that has to do with the Bill of Rights. And then the last one was a voting card that little groups got when we were learning about why the Articles of Confederation didn't work so well, and the United States needed to find a different way with the Constitution. So if you'd like to take a look at those at the past, are you interested? Yeah.
Okay.
I saw you getting out of the car with them.
Learn a lesson.
Bill of Rights thing, I'm like, what are we learning? How do we
I
get?
think when we met with the teachers, all of the members of the 5th grade team to kind of go through this, and one thing that they really appreciated was that there was background information for the teachers. Like some of our 5th grade teachers actually didn't grow up in the United States, so they didn't have US history as 5th graders themselves. So they really appreciated having some of that background. It does have both the digital and the physical materials, which I think was something that felt pretty important to folks. And a lot of just scaffolding and support, like it felt like was very, there were a lot of supports there for different students who would have different extensions as well as supports.
And this is fifth grade.
This
level.
level. Yep. Any questions about this one?
So each student gets one of these books and that's like theirs for the year. They can rip those out and they rip the pages out, right?
Yep.
Okay.
They write in them, some of them are like, yeah, activities.
Grade, do they turn in the book or the page to grade?
The assessments are not part of the book, from what I saw. These are just activities as they gather information for like those longer unit inquiry questions that they're trying to understand.
Okay.
I think one thing as well with this, with a few different ones, but the current materials they have now, the reading level is actually higher. It's like 6th or 7th grade. Yes, we've had for a while. So these are actually at the student's level. They can really like support some of those reading as well as writing. And they can adjust the text level, a few different levels, not too many, but and have the text read to them online.
Comprehension is the key, right? And we are understanding that kids are.
And lots of engaging pictures and inquiries within the pictures to help them understand the material.
So since we're chatting,
Yes.
I was trying to hold on to the end, I'm sorry. But based on the student feedback, which I loved that aspect of what you guys did. And how exciting to see such strong numbers in hands-on activities and group projects. That really excites me for less screen time. So that's fabulous. And that being said, is this screen based or are kiddos gonna get books?
Both. So they have this book as well as the digital access, so they can, that provides more flexibility. Like if they need to read at a different level, they might go online because this is only gonna be at 5th grade level. If they needed a 3rd grade level, they might go read it
So
there.
would the online screen time be the norm or the exception?
Well, I can't speak to every teacher, but as a 5th grade team, I think we prefer reading from the textbook. And as a school as a whole, we really want to practice reading fluency. And it's another opportunity where students can work together and read through the pages together and practice that fluency on their own. So that's where I would lean.
The reading out loud.
The reading out loud.
Yeah.
To each other.
Yeah.
And together as a whole. But it's also nice to be able to vary it. So throughout the lessons, when I did it with my class, we did it that way one time. Even online in the slide presentation, you can have the text come up onto your TV. And so we also just read it full class from the TV together and scaffolded it that way. And I even tried it where it could read to the students right on the TV as a whole class, just to see what they enjoy. But again, I would prefer them to do as much reading from the textbook as possible.
What was the last year that curriculum was updated for 5th grade?
This one, I think is, for our 5th grade?
Yes.
Gosh, for history?
Is it?
Yes, like 2015 maybe, or 14. Been a while, yeah, for you guys. Any other questions about the TCI one?
I echo what Michelle said. I love that we're moving back to books. It's like been such a pet peeve of mine that everything is on a laptop and I'm like, where are your textbooks? Shouldn't your backpack be heavy? So this is great. I love this. And I don't know the results of studies, but I can imagine that actually having a book that our kids are going to be writing in is going to help their fine motor skills. And I know that handwriting has been a big issue because of COVID, and we haven't had any practice with our handwriting. So this is great. I love it.
And I think a lot of what we're looking at is variety of different kids need different things for access, different tools and resources. So one way is usually not best for everybody. So that's part of it. The next one we're looking at is Traverse, and this is for 8th grade US history, 11th grade US history, current world problems, and civics. And again, I'll kind of, if you all, do you want to share some of the things that you're excited about or that you felt as you tried with students? We did have a chance to do. Yeah. Web actually taught it.
Yeah, and I'm gonna say a few things for Kristen Garlatz, who couldn't make it tonight. She's got a sick kiddo at home, but she sent me a few things, a little bit of feedback. So yeah, Webb and Kristen had it in their classrooms for a couple weeks, and we're doing some demo lessons. I guess my piece real quick, as I was a part of the team for this, I love the variety, like you guys already spoke to, different ways for assessing students and accessing that knowledge that they've found. And then also accessibility features are awesome. And then just the way in which they sort of center student inquiry throughout the curriculum is awesome. So constantly asking questions that are maybe relatable to our Constitution, but also relatable to a 12 or 13-year-old who might not care about our Constitution yet. So they kind of find clever ways to make you think about things that you wouldn't maybe naturally think of at that age. And here's Kristen's words here. So she said, questions that spur conversation. And there are multiple levels of sentence starters to support our readers and our writers. She was working on a chapter which was just like the beginning of the Civil War. So heading into some pretty heavy material. She said she liked how both sides of a modern issue were connected to the chapter and presented with the opportunity for students to share their opinions, respond to others' opinions, and from there she could sort of see how those responses resonated with her students and could bring that student voice back into the classroom. So she appreciated that. And then lastly, she just liked the way that you could customize the chapters on the digital end of things and provide certain sources and resources for the students without showing them too much, as opposed to maybe a physical textbook where you could, you know, scroll through the whole thing and distract yourself from the task at hand. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll kind of echo what Kristen said. The scaffolding is great because you can do it for each individual student. And so you can go, you know, with your ML population and you can do it with your IEP population. Right now they only have one reading level down, but you can also, if you go to like beginning at ML student, like, you know, multiple language student, it'll even go a little bit lower. So you can go kind of the lower kids reading levels there. The book, the book is mostly the primary sources. So it does a good job of having the primary sources right there for the kids to have access to. The thing I like about Traverse is it's not a traditional textbook as a whole. It's really interactive in, you know, teacher student discussion and student collaboration. And so it's not just sit there, read the chapter, do the questions. There is questions. I did my section of this one on just the Great Society of Lyndon Baines Johnson. And they asked, like, you know, kind of they had like a question where they asked, just give 3 words what you think about, you know, the Great Society. And then they get them and they actually created a whole document of like for each class, like which words they use the most. Like, yeah, you might have equality, you might have work, you might have poverty, you might have, you know, food or whatever it is. So they can kind of see what other kids said too. We can have discussions with them. The teacher manual is pretty easy to understand and kind of go there and get ideas to kind of like discussion questions and work with. So it really worked well. Worked well for the kids. They liked it. At the end of my 2 weeks, I did one program 1 week and another program another week. At the end, I asked them which one they like better, and it was 3-1 in Traverse. So it was, you know, pretty high. Like, you know, it was basically 46-14. And you know, the sample size I got, and that they said, you know, I really like that one better because of what of just kind of the access to it. The questions they asked they thought were better for them to kind of wrap their mind around. And so that was kind of cool too.
That leads to one of some of my questions from all 3 of you. I'm hearing similar keywords: conversation, student voice, non-traditional. How are they being assessed so that they learned something?
The assessment, there is
I'm feeling a lot of feeling and conversation, but
yeah, there still is like
teaching and learning.
each of the individual units they have the assessment questions. One thing we always do on our PLCs is create, you know, we always do it for every Monday is create a formative assessment of the last week's work to make sure they know it and make sure what do I need to teach differently? And so I would still use it the same way. And I think I liked about it is it's easier, I think, for me to add more, it'd be easier to interject things through Traverse than the other program. So like, we thought, like, one of the things that we talked about in 1950s is Emmett Till. Well, I've looked through a number of textbooks and no one mentions Emmett Till. Yeah, if you think about it, so in the 50s, he's a big part of that because what happened to him kind of spurred some of the things that happened later on. And so I found it easier to kind of interject some things that I wanted to do to the Traverse curriculum than another one. So.
One of the things that the kids pointed out was different ways, not just to test. And so I think that is something that we looked for. There's discussion prompts in here for kids, but there's also suggestions for the teachers of what to look for when you're listening to the kids discuss, right? There's things like that, guides around that help them to gather information in a variety of different ways from kids, which was something I think that was appealing as well, kind of related to your question. And there's an inquiry for each kind of section, so there's a larger project that kids are doing that they're kind of getting to bring some of their own thinking and their own ideas, So that was something else. Couple other things in here, there's a lot of literacy supports. Web kind of talked about that a little bit, but another thing that stood out, I think, in their work was that it's chunked differently. It can be arranged, so some kids can't handle maybe as much information all at once. So like you're saying, they can select just presenting small amounts at the same time. So there's a lot of flexibility there. And then there's the physical books as well. So again, there's sort of an opportunity for kids to be both engaging, but if there's a kid who needs to look at those sources and read them in paper, there's books as well. So it's kind of a balance there, which I think was also something that the instructional materials committee noted and felt was
We have a position where books can go home with students.
These ones we wouldn't probably do that for, but they're the same resources or digital as well. So like they would have the.
And the other thing that I found, like, if we wanted to like change the reading level, you can print them out. So you can say you want to give a copy, you don't want to give they might not have internet or they, just like, here, just have some kids just want to read paper copies. And so you can just print one out, and then they can have a copy. But it works better for, like, say, it's nice for doing the other, levels of reading. And it does go into Spanish and it does read to you. It has a nice highlight and annotation tool. And we did that as a class, things like I tried out a lot of things with them. Okay, let's look for these kind of programs and then put them on those annotations so that everyone can see the annotations. So that's kind of a neat add-on.
And these were your 11th graders one?
Yeah.
That this was, both of them allowed translation in a number of different, so there's a full translation in Spanish, but they also have the digital translation in all of the other languages. So that was also something that was
Well, the other thing we saw too is also the Google read and write overlay worked with this one. It didn't work with the other book that we looked at. So for other students to speak other languages, it gives them access.
Any other questions?
When would these be implemented? Is the thought?
Next school year, if it was adopted.
Okay, Daniel, what's the cost?
It's in my budget.
It's within budget?
It's within my, yes,
Really?
Mhm.
Okay. And when we talk about having curriculum that starts in the younger ages, then goes up to older. Do these align like you want them to? And you're seeing the crossover?
I think we made a conscious effort to make sure that when we first started the process, is trying to make sure that it kind of had a good vertical alignment from all the way from, I don't know if we did lower than 5th grade, but from 5th grade all the way up to high school. To make sure it was, we weren't overlapping too much.
That's how we spent our first couple meetings together, was kind of making sure we had a clear outline as to what we wanted to focus on across all grade levels.
A storyline.
Yeah.
Connected to the standards. And I think that both, even though they're different curricula, they both have that inquiry thing. So the practice in fifth grade with inquiry is going to translate to what they're doing in eighth grade. And also the materials that we have in sixth grade are different as well, but they also have the inquiry component to them. Any other questions? Thank you for asking such great questions, board members, before adopting a new curriculum. I appreciate that.
I think we're in a different age now where we're just aware, I would say, more aware of the implications of new curriculum and student learning. Student success looks very different across the board.
Well, and the PLCs give us.
Yeah, that
such
gives us
good
a better insight.
information, 'cause we can't be in the classroom all the time, so seeing the data gives us platforms to ask questions, I think. So thank you for spending the time on that as well.
Well, that's great.
Without the PLCs, we wouldn't know that it's a start to finish program, right?
That's fabulous. Yeah.
So,
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. I
Mhm.
appreciate that. And I do want to thank these. This is a year-long process that
Oh,
they
wow.
engaged in. So it's a lot of work that they
kudos
took
to
for
the
us. So
students for participating. You're just like, yeah, we're gonna throw a wrench in your,
Yeah.
you know, like, switch gears for 2 weeks and then we're gonna go back to your regular scheduled programming, you know, so that's cool. Hope they got a little
And
bit of that.
I think the kids have been more involved in this one than we have done previously as well, and giving input. And so I think that's been a really powerful new.
Will the student?
New thing.
will
The
student
student
input
voice
be
is great.
something You adopt going forward?
Oh, yeah, I think it was super helpful. I think it really gave a lot, and we had really good, like it was 150 students who participated in that, and we shared it beyond just this committee. I mean, the folks that, it's just good information for social studies teaching in general, so it was
It is.
great. It was, yeah, it's very helpful. I really value, we've done a lot of student voice work this year, and I think you've all been able to sort of see some of that, and I think it's been really, really helpful and supportive.
It was a survey across 5 through 12, was that what we heard?
We've all done them in your classes. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
I even did freshmen, because I go, this is what you might have when you are juniors.
Mhm.
So what do you, I go, this is your chance to say, what do you want? So me and Steve Lawrence did 3 freshman classes. Total, that way we had, kind of a cross section, just not juniors who are leaving the program, but also. Freshmen that are gonna go, "Oh, I'm taking US history in 2 years, what do I want in a program?"
I also want to say too, is thank you for not being resistant. Because having curriculum for a long time and being a legacy teacher, if you will, we see that sometimes as people don't want change. And so thank you for being a leader and helping the process. That's good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Really good job.
Yes. That's our calling it after they're like, I'm old.
I understand,
Thank you.
I'm old, but.
Thank you.
I'm excited. I have a fifth grader next week.
Great job.
Good timing.
I knew that Bill of Rights part was gonna be expensive.
Look at football camp next week.
Oh, you would be.
Fresh excited.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
If you wanna look at this is the 8th grade, if you wanna look at it, just to see.
Can we? I would love to.
I might even hear it.
It's free.
They're busting out that.
They kind of pulled up, right?
It's free.
Something like a freshman.
Like, most of them are $200 a pop.
Oh, I know. It makes you really appreciate it.
Awesome. Next up, Dr. Kurt Harville. New business, first review policy and procedure 3245, student use of personal electronic devices.
All right, so, little timeline for you. Before I introduce policy. So this is, yes, it's an update to an existing policy. Student use of personal electronic devices. Last year, we started looking at this, and in June of 2025, Lisa created a cell phone survey that went out to staff, students, and families. In June, which is a busy time of the year, we received about 300 plus responses. From what I understand, that is the most responses we have had from others, from our surveys. Based on that survey responses, we then drafted a policy and procedure in October. Updated that with survey feedback in November. Myself, Sean, Robert, Dr. Everett, reviewed feedback and continued to draft the policy procedure. In December, students provided input through their student advisories. And then we also drafted kind of the finalized version, and we shared that with school admin for review, feedback, final adjustments made. So what you see before you is really started last June and then came through to probably January, February. The purpose of this policy is it aligns with the model policy from WASDA. WASDA has not updated their model policy since 2019. They're leaving it up to individual school districts to do the update. It aligns better with school procedures, so we wanted to align our policy with practice. Incorporates feedback from staff, students, and families. One of the things in the board has the summary of the feedback in your board docs. One of the things that caught my eye was teach cell phone use. And of the 300, that was the question, should we teach cell phone use? And of the 300 plus responses, 113 said definitely yes, we should be teaching how to properly use cell phones or personal electronic devices. And then 82 responded with probably yes, which positive me, I'm leaning towards yes, that we should be teaching. So 195 out of 300, even by my math, that's roughly 2/3 of the survey responses said instead of a ban, we should be teaching how to utilize. And so what this proposed first reading of this draft of the policy does is it clearly outlines where cell phones can be used within the school day. At the elementary, they're supposed to be put away, not at all. Middle and high school, it talks about silence and out of sight during instruction. They can be used before and after school, during lunch, and then during passing periods. So I think that it clearly states that during class, if you go to the bathroom, no cell phones. And so it's trying to align with what is happening in the buildings. The other thing you'll notice is in the policy, I believe, if you look at what was presented, policy was completely rewritten and is more explicit on when and how you can utilize them. Talks about prohibited use, talks about communication between students and families during the day. One of the comments that I heard from, when I was teaching, was how are my parents going to get a hold of me? And parents get a hold of you the same way they've always gotten a hold of you. They will either call the office and they will come get you. A personal story is when I was teaching freshmen, I was teaching and my cell phone was going off. Back in the day, we had cell phones. The kids were like, Mr. Harville, your cell phone's going off. I was like, you know what? If they need me, they're going to come get me. Went off. Honestly, probably 10, 15 minutes. I should have probably picked it up, but I was not going to. Pretty soon, the high school counselor comes running into my room, waving like, Mr. Harville, your wife is in labor. You need to go. Kids were like, oh. So they were like, but it kind of proved the point of if they need you, they're going to come get you. I made it to the delivery. I made it on time. So, but the same process happens. The procedure, if you look at it, there's a new section, again, trying to add clarity to the front of it. And then under definition, sexting and disrupting the learning environment, there is some additions in there. But as far as policies go, this one's been through kind of community, staff, student feedback to have what you have here now. And this is a first reading. So if you have questions,
All my questions via email.
you can send them via email and we will strive to find out. And cell phones are, I will say it's a hot topic right now.
We've heard from staff during
Yep.
public comment.
You had Mr. Schick coming to you.
And let them know, so you will probably get an email.
Yeah.
The
and
second comment on that is
Yeah.
policies and procedures are lovely on paper.
Yeah.
But implementation and staff training is a totally different
Yep.
topic.
and,
So that's the second part of how this is successful.
and I think we do have a responsibility to teach our students. I mean, cell phones, I don't think they're going away. There is a trend of going back to the textbooks as we heard, but I think our personal technology, I think it's gonna stay with us. So when they leave us and they go to college or they go into work, they gotta know kind of when, if I'm an employer and I have somebody answering their phone all the time, that's not gonna work out very well. So I think it's part of our job is to educate them on how to do it. Part of that is we also need a model. And I will self-admit I'm not the best model of it, but something we can work on. Okay. The other thing I'll say is, as with all policies and procedures, as we gather more information, these can be updated. But there aren't very many policies and procedures that we put a survey out to the community to get students, staff, and community feedback.
I was gonna say I like that.
Mhm.
And obviously, not every policy we should do that with,
Mhm.
but like this one, because it, family, deal with that in the home,
Mhm.
teachers and students, I think that's a great opportunity to involve the community, so I think that's awesome. I mean, I thought it was gonna be a telemarketer that was calling you, and that was your story, but your story's way better.
Well, and it shows the accountability factor that
Yeah.
it's class and home.
Mhm.
And if your phone has been confiscated, as it says,
Mhm.
it shouldn't be a surprise to the family.
Yep. Okay, this is first reading, so as always, love your questions.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, next item is old business. First topic is Wacom Early Learning Center, discussion. So no vote tonight, but a discussion and information. Board members will engage in follow-up conversation with, about the early childhood learning center. So.
Are you okay with an introduction to set the stage?
Yeah.
So I think with the development of the Whatcom County Skills Center, what was born out of that was an opportunity to provide an early learning center to serve our youngest learners in the community. We're talking about 3 and 4-year-olds who are supported with childcare, early learning, while also providing a place for early childhood education students attending the skills center to go and contribute. So they could do it in the morning, they could do it midday, or they could do it in the third session. The nice thing about this was to provide an extended day. So what we know from both the Healthy Children's Fund and from the Whatcom County Comprehensive, this is called CEDS, CEDS. So Whatcom County Comprehensive Economic Development Strategy is that in 22 to 26, they had forecasted by 2025 that we would have over 5,700 empty childcare slots in Whatcom County. So when the question came up about why is there an interest in having an early learning center in Whatcom County, it's because it provides both economic vitality and provides families opportunities and benefits our youngest learners. This has been an effort since 2023. I've secured $15 million of free tax dollars to provide an early learning center to serve our youngest learners and make sure that we can have a modular district office, because the place it's located is where the old district office is. So 12 million for the early learning center, 3 for the district office. You as a board get to decide moving forward. In the past 3 years, every grant, every donation has come in front of this board, and this board has approved them until the latest one from Whatcom County. Our district attorney has engaged with the county and given feedback. To this date, I don't know if all board members have seen the responses. I haven't been able to get back to the attorney to share responses from this board. It's your job to decide what direction we go. But I would think it would be a tragedy for this board to forego $15 million of tax refunding to serve our children and the people in this community. And I'm happy to answer questions, but I think the questions that you have to talk about are, what is it that you're able to work with and you're able to feel good about? But I don't think the process with the county is done. I would recommend continuing to engage to find a solution. That's all I have to share.
Thank you.
Yep.
I think everybody's asked really good questions. And it sparked more questions, which I really appreciate. And then it allowed us to ask our lawyer to basically do his job and due diligence to provide us with answers to things we wouldn't have thought that he brought back answers to. I feel good with his answers. There were some things I wasn't comfortable with at first. And I was really happy that Michelle was asking a lot of those questions. But after hearing the feedback from our attorney, I really do feel confident that we're moving in the right direction. I think that sometimes we just have to feel that we have to give it to the person that's the job to, like we give it to Daniel to do our money. We have to give those questions to our attorney and know that he's doing the job of making sure that they're covering us. And I feel by his answers, I feel protected, that he wouldn't steer us in the wrong direction.
I do believe there have been changes to the scope of work and the perception of strings attached with some of the gifting from county. So I am on the opposite side of that conversation where I am not comfortable with the language that remains in the contract. It also was new information to me. That it's really all children in Whatcom County and it's not necessarily Meridian School District children will be benefit from it. And when I looked at a third-party provider of opportunity counselor, one of those income-based learning centers, the wage ranges and median income falling between 51 and 61,000 per home to be eligible to receive that kind of care and services. What I found for the median income for a Meridian School District within our boundaries was 91. So how many families, including what was potentially our staff members or what thought their children might be able to attend, will actually be able to utilize those services? It's probably going to be much less than what we anticipated.
That's my concern. Yeah, that I heard as well as like some teachers were like, hey, I might be able to use this facility for my kids to have care. But you're making whatever it is at the middle school, then potentially not going to qualify. And so then the other verbiage around, I know that the Whatcom Health Department with not allowing us kind of say on what the specialists are, like some of the services. I know we spelled out quite a few. Those are really my hesitations, so.
But if they're in district, don't they get to use it?
It's income based with those services.
Provider would be able, correct me if I'm, the provider would be the one that would, the provider would pay us.
Mhm.
And then the provider would source
It's not accurate. So with the congressional directed spending, Alice is a factor. There are income levels that need to be met. We as the leasing would design whatever requirements would be necessary. Before you choose a provider, you get to set that up. You as the board would have that power. So it may be true to look at a provider now, but what they're doing currently doesn't necessarily mean that's the agreement we set up for the provider. We haven't gone down that road. We haven't built it yet. But it is both a requirement in several of the grants to make sure that we're addressing needs for early or income deficient early families. And we have the ability to even set aside slots for staff member kids. We could do it for foster kids. That's a huge issue in our county, is placement of children that are younger than 4.
We can write all this.
We can have all of that
So
put in there.
we're just trying to get the building built for all the money that's been raised at this point.
None of what we've done is dealing with who the provider is. That's correct.
And I think that's where there's variables that are outside our control. So do we commit to a $15 million spend? Accepting grant dollars that do have requirements associated with them when there's still a lot of gray area.
With all due respect, that was a reason 5 minutes ago you weren't willing to go with it, because the providers weren't gonna give them the options. So
Now you're saying that they have to give us the option, but we don't know. What you're actually saying is we
you
don't know.
need
It
to
depends on
read
who
the
we-
grants you've approved. The congressional directives, no, the congressional directed grants and opportunities it's written in there. And I can provide all of those to you again. But those conditions are things that's what CSG is helping us navigate. What are the conditions that we have to have in place? And it's to serve our most needy in this community. And it is true, it's not limited to just Meridian School District. What is designed, I won't be here, right? What is designed is up to the Dr. Harville, Daniel, CSG, and all of you.
Well, and by design, the name is Welcome Early Childhood, right? It's not
Who's-
just Meridian.
Who's the other group? Or early learning at Wacom?
Yeah.
There's another group out there
Right,
that
because
they've never liked that
yeah,
name, but it
yeah.
was a grant. We had to keep it the same name, but when it gets to be a provider, we'll have to go through something to change the name, but.
Yeah, we'll have to do a renaming, but
But Wacom County Skill Center is that way because we don't want a student from Linden pulling in and seeing the big M. I mean, it's a Wacom County asset, but that's different with the early learning center. I don't know if you'll want to call it Meridian. It certainly could be, because kids from the Skill Center would come to the early learning center, right? So.
after our discussion, where do we go from here?
I think if there's any additional questions, we want to get those back to the attorney. I think that I got a few from a few board members, but I'll follow up with the other ones that haven't. And then the next steps would be bring it to another vote if we so choose, or bring it to a vote.
Yeah, I suppose if we try to get it on the next agenda as soon as possible. So if we could get those questions addressed, that'd be great.
Do you have any questions, Jess?
I shared my response to our attorney's questions. I feel confident that we're in a position that we should move forward with this facility use agreement. I think in the larger, in the grand scheme of things, I guess to this, an analogy, we're in a housing crisis. The county's in a housing, our nation's in a housing crisis. And the irony is that we're putting up more barriers throughout this permitting process to get housing built, which then increases the cost of housing. And similarly, in this instance, we want affordable childcare and we want to do it for our county. But we're throwing out more barriers, going back and forth with our attorney with these questions that aren't relevant at this time. And it's increased the cost of childcare down the line. I think we need to make a decision now. If we don't make a decision, we're gonna have providers that previously promised funding for us. Like I sent an email to the board, didn't get a response. I know everyone's busy, but my concern is that if we keep putting off agreeing to this facility use agreement, that providers that promised us this grant funding, they're gonna find other nonprofits that need this funding. We need to make a decision, and I am terrified that we're gonna lose this money and the project will be killed. We don't have the facility use agreement here on the agenda today, so I don't know if it would be inappropriate to make a motion to approve that. It was in a previous packet. I'm not sure
It
how,
would need to have been
Yeah,
put in before the meeting. I think the purpose was to have dialogue,
yeah.
right? So I don't think that would be appropriate.
okay. So moving forward, would the board entertain having a special meeting? To approve a facility use agreement? I would hate to wait until our next scheduled meeting.
Well, I think it's gonna take a little bit of time to get some little bit of questions answered from the attorney. I think we have a little bit more. Don't we?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it might take a couple weeks to just make sure we navigate that properly. But if we get them answered in time, would be no reason not to.
Right, we just have to have the Friday before the next board meeting.
Oh, is that okay? Which rule, we have? 12th, yeah.
Or that Monday, I mean, we gotta be 24 hours in front of it, but,
Oh, okay.
you just let me know the time and I can meet with you, Jared.
12th or 14th.
Any more on this topic? The next item is second review and approval, policy 1440, and regarding minutes. Any questions, comments? Before we get a motion? Okay, can I get a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve, policy 1440.
I'll second. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you. Second review and approval, policy 1610, the conflicts of interest, districts with fewer than 2,000 students. Any comments, questions, or concerns? Can I get a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve policy 1610, of interest, districts with fewer than 2,000 students.
I'll second. Go ahead.
You go.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Last old business item is second review and approval policy 5411, staff vacations. Any comments, questions, or concerns? Okay, can I get a motion?
All motion to approve policy 5411.
I'll second.
Not in
I'll second.
Any, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
There you go. Thank you. The moment we've been waiting for. Daniel York, budget presentation, 2026.
All right. Hope you're all still awake and we'll engage for a little bit. Okay, so this is the budget presentation for next year's budget, 26-27. We will adopt the budget on June 17th. So we're just going through the presentation tonight. It's always nice when you can present it like one meeting before you adopt. It doesn't happen every year, but this year we're able to do that. Stop me along the way if you have questions. So this first slide here is our budgeted enrollment. Core programs 1540. If you really, it's pretty similar to the prior year. As far as rolling up each grade band to the next grade level. Early learning is a bit interesting. We lost in the legislative session, we lost 20 FTE in the transitional kindergarten program. So what we did is we applied for an additional 20 slots with the ECAP program. That's through Opportunity Council. We were granted those slots. It's not net zero as far as funding. It's less funding than we were receiving from the state. And we are providing a similar service. As far as, kind of jumping a little ahead of myself, but the requirements, to get those kids enrolled in the ECAP program is a little harder than the transitional kindergarten program. So right now, we feel like we can fill the 20 slots, but it's really gonna be seeing what kids we actually have next year, and working through that. The MP3 program we have at 220 FTE. We've been hovering around 215 for a lot of years. The last couple of years, we were up at 220. And really every aspect of this budget, if there were revenues that we could capture or enrollment that we could capture, we had to do so because it was a challenging budget year. On the flip side, with the expenditures, anywhere that we could make reductions, we made reductions. So we'll get into some more of those details as we go through. But as far as the enrollment numbers go, there's no, there isn't really a lot of conservatism in there. These are the kids that we expect to show up. It's not more, it's not less, it's really what we expect it to be. Where, you know, if in less challenging budget years, you would build a little bit of conservatism in there. That way, if enrollment doesn't show up, it's not as big of an impact. So it's just gonna be a year where we have to watch things more closely.
So Daniel, correct me if I'm wrong, but this last year, we didn't have all TK positions filled and we paid for it from other funding, correct? Not all of it came, we had how many?
We were less one at the time at the end. And all but one.
But prior to that, during the school year, throughout the year.
Yeah, we came out, we had 44 allowed, and I think our average for the year ended up being 43. Yep.
So it wasn't an actual extra expense for the district. Everything was basically covered.
The early learning program did have a shortfall. Off the top of my head, I can't remember exactly what it was for last year. This coming year, it's $143,000. That money comes from, you know, other pots of money, whether it's state or levy, whatever you want to call it, but it's looking at the budget as a whole, and then that is one of the factors that goes into there and needing to cover that shortfall. Running start is probably another area to point out. We last year, the 25-26, we budgeted 60 students. In 26-27, we budgeted 70 students. And we actually had about 77 average throughout the year. It seems like it comes in waves where it will kind of really ramp up, and this last year it really ramped up, and we budgeted for that. When you have a running start student, you're not retaining a lot of that funding. Most of that funding goes to the community college. We're paying out quite a bit to our Whatcom Community College and the Technical College, William BTC. Any questions on budget enrollment? If one thing is the bottom line of the total for enrollment, it's going up. Sorry, I got confused myself for a second there. If you look at these two columns, I was looking at the one on the right instead, and I confused myself. But we are up a total of 7 FTE. That's not a lot. It's a little bit, but at least it's a positive number. But when when most of your funding is driven by your enrollment, it's kind of shows you the direction you're going. That makes sense. So the general fund, revenues and expenditures, we have a balanced budget. That's a pretty big deal. The first time, when we went through this process, we really started by I don't want to take too much of Kurt's portion, but, we only added in the highest priority items. And because we knew it was going to be a tough year. And then when we did that and we flushed out the revenues and expenditures, we were short $2.5 million. And that was kind of like an eye-opening moment of, okay, we got a lot of work to do. And we've done that work and we've got to a balanced budget that I do feel comfortable with. And I think we'll be successful. The fund balance, is budgeted at 3.5 million. I think that's a number that we can hit. This is the breakdown of the fund balance. That first line, the $20,000 has kind of been in there forever. That's some set aside that was committed. If it says committed, that means it's committed by a board resolution. If it says assigned, it means it's management. Typically it's me, or conversations with me and the superintendent. And then the unassigned I'll get to when we talk about each individual item. So the compensated absences, that's just money set aside for sick leave and vacation leave. There's a total of 700,000 for assigned contingencies. 350,000 is for major equipment repairs and replacement. I also put in, this is new this year, 350,000 contingencies for financial stability. So because this budget is grabbing every revenue that we can and reducing expenditures quite a bit to get things to balance out, it just adds a little bit more risk. And so what this does, it kind of gives us a little bit of a safety net if something doesn't quite come through. I lost my slide here. So for example, I'll get into kind of the revenues that this will help out. But we've been pretty fortunate with our enrollment, and it's stayed, mostly flat, and we haven't had an exodus of students, but that's not the case for a lot of school districts. So this could give us a little bit of buffer if we do end up not making our enrollment targets. And again, like I spoke to earlier, we're budgeting right at where we expect the kids to be. And we're pretty good at hitting those targets. But still, it's nice to have a little bit of a buffer there.
Projections that we've talked about the last couple of years about where our enrollment is supposed to be in at 2030 or 20. Like if we're consistently seeing flat, we were told we were going to have expansive growth. Are we not actually seeing it?
I think I don't often look at like long-term enrollment. We only do that when we're doing like a capital facilities plan.
Yeah, that's what we were on. That's what we were sharing.
Yeah, and some of what's built in there for those growth points are when there's developments that are taking place, and those haven't happened yet.
And that's gonna be more Cordata centered stuff that's just not happening quite yet.
There's some small things, but I think the fact it's a projection, right? And so it's a best guess at a time. And so, what we've seen more accurately is there are drops in the number of students, right? So, your question about the early learning, the fact that the state did fund schools this year, and they funded schools, they took revenue away. has made not just early learning, but lots of funds. We have to find different places to fund what we need. And so the critical piece is that he's got a black budget, which is awesome because there's some folks who aren't hitting that, but those are good questions.
Yep, thank you. The $60,000, you'll see this every year. It's usually pretty consistent. This is like carryover of funds. So the funds are assigned to a specific purpose and there's some funds remaining. Those get earmarked into the fund balance and carried over. It's usually about the same amount. It's usually about 60,000. The 2.2 million is unassigned minimum fund balance policy. So the board has a policy. It says between 4 and 5.5% is our minimum fund balance, and then that amount is set in its own code. Most of that along with the line under it, the unassigned fund balance, that's kind of like the very minimum that you need just for some cash flows. But honestly, you probably need a little bit more than that, and that's kind of where the other assigned figures are that we have up above.
When you say cash flows, are you talking about being able to pay?
Yeah, so
employees?
it's like paying your bills each month, making payroll, paying your accounts payable. Questions on fund balance? Okay, here's some of the revenues. There's a few kind of standout items. I'll speak to those in a little more detail, and the other ones I'll kind of breeze through just because it's 7 o'clock. Local property tax, that's up 234,000. When we go out for levies, we plan for it to go up each year. That's what that is. The apportionment, that's went up by 466,000. That's really, it's just a little bit of additional enrollment that we have, increase that, as well as like there was a state COLA up to 2.6% cost of living adjustment. Really no additional funding from the state. It's like maybe a few dollars per kid for MSOCs, like literally a few dollars, nothing that adds up. So you'll see in all the special ed categories, that's up from last year's budget because we were over in special ed by 33 students. So that's a pretty significant increase from where we had budget planned on our special ed students to the actual students that we serve. We did a really good job of not having too big of overruns in the special ed department as we went through there. So the special apportionment, that's up 119,000. The state speds for 447,000. Now the one under that special ed safety net. So what safety net is for any student that is really high impact and you have to spend a lot of money on, you can apply for a grant called safety net, and what it does is it will provide funding above the first $40,000 that you can target that you spent on that student. And it was pretty it's likely pretty significant for the year that we are in. And we're planning for that next year. So you don't we haven't typically budgeted for safety net because you don't because a lot of times it's extra costs that you're getting throughout the year that money will go towards. This year when we had a $2.5 million shortfall, this is one of the areas that I had to really get precise on and get some good estimates on how much we can expect to receive in safety net funding. It's $615,000. So that includes things like student placement. I have the dollars in here. So student placement is like we have student placement that's about $300,000, and then we have I think about $320,000 for Walk and Discovery. That's for students. So if we don't end up spending the money on either of those, like we don't need to provide those services. Because we have a revenue tied to that, what I'm gonna do is actually pull that money out of the budget that it's sitting in. It's in the special ed budget right now, put that in our capacity so we don't touch it. That way, there isn't really a risk of accounting for the revenue, because if the expense goes away, and we're not gonna receive the revenue, we'll kind of wash out both sides of it. Does that make sense?
And now is it allocated for current students, what if we find ourselves in another situation where we need to do a second placement, a third placement through the year, can we still pull from that funding?
You can pick it back up, which we actually did this year. So there's like an initial application, and then there's like a secondary application if you have, major events or needs that come up that you have to provide. The Title I is showing up 54,000. So really this is like this is a way to be creative to help balance the budget. So there's this thing called transferability where you can look at your other title grants like Title II and Title IV, and you can transfer grant funding that you have in those grants to Title I. And the way that helps is in Title I, you're mostly paying for your teaching staff, teachers and paras. And so it's money that goes directly to staff. And so what we've done is we've transferred, I think $48,000 from these other two grants to Title I. That way it helps pay for, half of a teacher or whatever, it saves you from having to make a reduction. Food service, you heard Erin's presentation, all the things that she's doing, and the scratch food, as well as IRE being able to eat for free, has really increased our revenues in food service. That program runs a little over $800,000 in expenditures, and we're budgeting $825,000 in revenues. So it runs in the black, and you're allowed to take a little bit of an indirect, so that's money that can help pay for overhead and things. But to even have a food service program that's running in the black can be a rare thing, and is a pretty big deal. So kudos to Erin on that, but that's a 159,000 increase. Again, the revenue comes with you serving more food, you got to pay more in the expenses to prepare and buy the food. Transportation, we're budgeting for an 84,000 increase. This is we've done some things with routing to make it so we can count some more students than we did this year, and hopefully boost that up, that $84,000. Transportation is an expensive program to run. There is a shortfall currently, but we are hoping to pull in some more revenue next year. This is one where I'm a little less concrete on the exact number that we're going to receive. But
yeah, there's a transition right now. If you remember in the legislative session, they went from 13-year to a 15-year.
Yeah.
Contract. So I think that's
There's
affecting.
appreciation.
Yeah.
Yep. Oh, our expenditures are 1.7 million for that program, where our revenues a little less than 1.6. Still not bad as far as transportation departments go. I don't know how you could run it more efficiently than what we do, honestly. It's pretty lean. The tech levy is, so the way the tech levy works is the levy funds go into the capital projects fund, And then we spend those dollars out of the general fund, and then in August. Or sometimes through the middle of the year, if we need more cash in general fund, but typically in August. We'll look at the actual costs that we've spent, transfer those dollars over from the capital projects fund to the general fund. That's what that $1.1 million are. And right now, you probably heard Joe talk about it. We're doing a major device replacement. And that's happening this summer and then next year. And so we've saved up $617,000 planning to do this device replacement. And so we budgeted to be able to spend those dollars next year. And so that's what that 617 is. So that's something, that's kind of a number that I would say if you're looking at a couple of things that would boost up that 40 million. It's the tech levy fund balance, transfer the 617,000, and then that safety net of 615,000 are both kind of new things.
So the replacement and upgrade, does that 617 cover it, or is there potential for additional financial liabilities?
I mean, really we're not gonna spend more than what we have. But costs are kind of all over the place for technology right now. I think, so the purchase that we're making this summer, we're getting devices on June 15th, that's about $1 million. And we ordered those, I think, in February. Jump in if I speak incorrectly, but those have, what if like quadrupled the price?
Yeah, we secured devices in February, with the agreement that the vendor was gonna hold them for us. And then to be delivered to us during summer. But we wanted to lock in pricing. That same device. As of, I looked last week to just see what the price was, it had more than doubled the cost. In what, 4 months-ish. And so it's very volatile right now.
Way to lock it in. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
it was good planning, honestly,
That is.
it was good planning. So yeah, we're not gonna overspend what we have, but. You know, Joe's really tracking the whole life of the levy and planning all these things out and estimating inflation, and so it really kind of just depends on. How the inflation actually ends up being to where the estimates are. Questions about revenues?
Questions about expenditures.
All right. Okay, so Kurt's gonna run through a few of the slides here, and then I'm gonna jump back in. Kurt just has a really great understanding of all the staffing adjustments that we made, and so he's mostly gonna be speaking to that. A little bit about the process here in the beginning.
Thanks, Daniel. So I guess highlights. It says up there, we started the conversations in December for the budget for this year. In reality, we probably started them when the board approved the budget. Because typically we would approve the budget and then we get wants and we get needs from buildings and directors. And what we noticed this year is there were very few of those. And we didn't have very many post-budget ads. We had some, but each one that came went to exec team and it was discussed. Is there a different way to do it? Can we solve it in another way? And so I think that really limited some of our post-budget ads. So we started talking about this one in December, but in the back of our mind, we knew this discussion was happening and we know it's going to be the same situation next year. So they're kind of ongoing. As Daniel mentioned, we looked at a district-wide budgeting process. So previously we went school by school and the principals and department by department, and everybody got to put in their wish list. And this time we still gathered that information, but we looked at holistically, what are our priorities and how do they align to our commitments? What we see up on the wall. We had planning for multiple contingencies if we were I have a document if we are 500,000 income. Short, if we're 1 million, if we're 1.5, if we're 2, if we're 2.5, and with different options of what's available.
You mean reductions? What kind of reductions we need to meet to hit that threshold?
To meet that threshold while serving students, in our grade bands. And how do we make that work? And then the other thing is how do we utilize our existing staff to provide those services to our students? So if we have staff with multiple endorsements, then they may be asked to teach a class that maybe they haven't taught, or maybe it's been a while, or maybe it's not their preferred, but we're utilizing our staff's endorsements to serve our students. And then finally, and I talked about this, but if we had a vacancy, do we need to fill it? If we do, can we fill it internally? Do we need to go out and hire somebody, or how do we adjust that? Goals of the budgeting team, Daniel mentioned when we first ran the budget, we had a $2.5 million shortfall. And there was some uh-ohs. And then Daniel went through and reanalyzed the budget, and we reduced the budget in the expenditure, which is a lot of HR, by about roughly 1.5 million. The goal always is, and we've had this motto for, I mean, I think it's always been our motto, but if we hire you into an ongoing, continuing position, we want to maintain our staff. And I feel like, and I'll get to it actually next. So questions on the process? Okay. The method we used, and this is similar to what we've used this method for really the past 3 years. When we're talking about transferring staff from building to building. Several years ago, we transferred our Spanish teacher from the high school to the elementary because they had an endorsement. And then we transferred our middle school Spanish teacher to the high school based on endorsement. And then we don't have Spanish teacher at the middle school, but those are some of the transfers that we utilize. The CBA allows for that. So if a staff member wants to get up to the high school, and they're at the middle school, then there's language in the CBA that by March 15th, if you submit a transfer letter, you get first priority, so to speak.
DBA for.
Collective bargaining agreement, thank you. And we have, that's mainly for certificated teachers, that language. Classified is based on seniority. So, shift, we can shift teaching assignments in the same building. So we talk about those endorsements. So if you have a math and an art and you've been teaching math the whole time, then we may ask you to teach an art class because that's where our students are. We have the higher numbers there. And then reduction, are we reducing a position? Are we either moving the person to another position and not backfilling that position? And we utilized all 3 of these methods this year. I've already talked to, analyzed each vacancy. And then the bottom one is reductions. And we have gone through this process now, Daniel, this is our 3rd year. 3rd year of going through having these conversations. And our goal, as I said previously, is always, we want to maintain our ongoing, continuing staff. And over these 3 years, we've reduced 1 position. For our district, I think that's huge. And if you just have to look at neighboring districts, that's not the case in other districts. And that's nothing against them. They have a different story. But our story is we've been able to make these reductions and maintain our ongoing continuing staff. And that ongoing continuing is important because you might be hired as a leave replacement. So if someone goes out on leave and we need to teach or to serve those students, so you're on a leave replacement. For classified, we have temporary contracts for a 1 year only. For certificated teachers, they have what's called a provisional status, and then they go into continuing. And so if you're a brand new teacher, you're in provisional status for 3 years, and then you go into continuing. If you're a teacher from Ferndale with 15 years of experience in Ferndale and you move into Meridian, you're hired here, then you have 1 year of provisional. And what that provisional status does is it allows the district, for what I'm learning, almost any reason, to not hire you back for the next school. We just have to notify you by May 15th. And then we try not to use that in a reduction format because we may need that position.
So clarification.
Yep.
3 years, basically provisionary probation time for someone fresh out of college,
Brand new teacher, brand new
Okay.
to the.
1
teacher
year.
hire.
for that.
Yeah. So I want to celebrate that we've gone through these reductions and we've maintained our staff. How we did that, some examples. Leadership, so building leadership changes. Irene Rather, an assistant principal, was transferred into a vacancy at the middle school. That middle school vacancy was available because that teacher had put in a transfer request to the high school. And so during the budgeting process, one of the priorities that we outlaid for the district was Irene is a large elementary. And we have bounced back and forth between one assistant principal and a principal and 2 assistant principals and a principal. And we went back to the 2 assistant principals and a principal. And when we shifted those staff into those positions, we did not backfill that. So one of the staff members who was a coach, ML coach, went into the assistant principal, and we're not backfilling that ML coach for the primary grades. Another staff member will take on some of that coaching. The other one was a dean of instruction. They moved up to the assistant principal, and we're not backfilling that dean of instruction. So some of those reductions result in savings. And when we do that, we're not just moving up. We are, okay, who has finished their admin program? Who is next in line to step into that role? So it's very thoughtful.
The other thing I would add is those 2 with the expertise that they had in those other roles, they'll still share that expertise in their new roles as administrators, but probably not exclusively, right?
That's what I
So,
was gonna ask
yeah,
about the
yeah.
dean of instruction. How are we gonna kind of still try to serve that capacity?
Both of those
Okay.
new assistant principals plus Tyler have a very strong instructional background. And I will say across the board, our assistant principals and principals have a very strong instructional core to them. Another area that we made some savings from is, as we know, Dr. Everett is going to Anacortes. And I'm stepping into the interim superintendent role, but I'm not backfilling my position. And so that, from Dr. Everett's salary, total salary, to my salary, is a savings that we are recognized, and it helped us balance the budget. And then what's happening is some of my job duties will be distributed, and we're working through that process now to Adrian and Julie. And so we're working on that process now. The other change we made is custodians are returning back to director of maintenance and operations. And so Taylor is taking on that. And what that does is that allows Bryant to focus on the athletics and the big job that is already. Questions so far? Okay. And then some of the teaching. We talked about the Irene AP transferred into the social studies position. We talked about the 2 shifted TOSAs. Boy, I got ahead of myself. And then we also talked about the MEA CBA and those transfers that the collective bargaining agreements with MERIDIAN Education Association allow. We also had we have some creative where we had some 1.0 positions, and we didn't need a full 1.0 in math based on student enrollment at the high school. So we posted for a 0.8, and then we still had that 1.0 position, but we took 0.2 of it and we added it to this position over here. So in this particular case, we used some creative bookkeeping to get a 0.8 math position. a 1.0 CTE with another specific endorsement, and then a 0.8 PE. We had a high need in PE. And so we created a position for a 0.8. It's not a 1.0, but it's a 0.8. They'll support PE and health next year. And that's based on enrollment and numbers that basically our sophomores have to take health. And then we are also, we also had a high number of students taking PE. So that allows us to do those. And
Question, what does TOSA stand for?
teacher on special assignment.
And what does a 0.8
So a
teacher look like on the ground?
0.8 teacher would be if you have 5 periods during the day and both semesters, then that's a 1.0 teacher. So 0.8 of that might be you're going to teach 4 sections semester 1 and 4 sections semester 2. You're just not teaching the full schedule. And then Daniel's already talked about some of the early learning. But this was one of those discussions that we had as an executive team and as a budget team is we placed a lot of value in that early learning. And so we wanted that to continue. We are seeing results from those students who are in that early learning program as they're moving up into kindergarten and first grade. And so we as a district thought this is something that's important and we want to continue.
But at a shortfall of $143,000, and it didn't come before the board to also.
Yep, we talked about it and then we also were financially able to absorb it from other areas. And I'll let Daniel's kind of talked about it. He could talk more specifically about that, but.
Yeah, I mean, it's similar to what we had this year in 25, 26. If we're gonna end it to drop that program would be a pretty major decision that I think would take a lot of planning if we're gonna get rid of that program. It's 5 classrooms, so that's 5 teachers. And is there 2 and one pair per classroom? So that's 10 staff members that, would be out of a job. Right? There is some value that the special ed department gets from having an early learning program where if those kids do qualify for special services, they can receive that funding. And in those instances, that money's been put towards the preschool program, so there's some benefit there. So it's yeah, I think if that's a direction the board wants to go to get rid of that program, I think it's kind of something we'd have to start planning for pretty far in advance.
I do believe other districts are cutting some of their TK. I think I heard Linden and maybe Blaine.
They didn't receive, so what happened is there was a cut. So when we talk about revenues from the state, they actually cut 33% of TK funding statewide based on a crazy DCYF map that was never intended to be used for this purpose. OSPI decided where there would be cuts across the state to programs. And so if you haven't had TK, you couldn't get it now. If you do have it, depending on what the housing and this map provided, you lost some of those seats. We've consistently had about 84 students that we were serving in our community. And so we knew that we were going to lose some, but we didn't know how much. We ended up losing 56%.
Yeah, we lost.
Yeah, out of 44.
Oh, yeah, of course.
So we began having conversations with ECAP. The child assistance program, I think.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but that takes additional time from the teachers to document and fall within the parameters to receive that funding.
Not anymore. We've worked through that. So there is some additional training and it may not be fully accurate to say not anymore, but we've got procedures, or Irene has procedures now that team comes in and they're ready to go. And so we did have a conversation about, do we drop it down to 4 classrooms? Do we drop it below? We don't. We also had to play with timing on May 1 when ECAP and DCYF was sharing what slots they were gonna provide. And this has been a pretty strong program within Meridian School District from 2018 to this year. We got a 250% increase in the number of 3 and 4-year-olds that we're serving. And those kids are doing really well. It's an investment in the way our kids are learning and how they're performing as they move through our system. So that's, I mean, I think Daniel could go through several areas of our budget that's not funded by the state. And we're using different funds to try and make our program work. And we've been able to balance it.
And do we know, are all of those students Meridian district students?
Oh, I believe so.
They have to go through a choice transfer process.
Oh, or they, yeah, I mean,
There are some in that program that are out of district.
And
They go
we're not
through a choice
receiving
program.
funding for them,
No, we receive funding.
but we have $143,000 shortfall.
We're still receiving funding for them, but even with the students in that program, we're at that 143,000.
so, and we did run scenarios with, we had a, a giant spreadsheet that would calculate what the shortfall is for 3 classrooms and what the shortfall was for 4 classrooms and what the shortfall was for 5 classrooms. And if we were to not, if we were going down classrooms, then we're not asking for the additional 20 ECAP slots. And the shortfall was higher for 3 and 4 classrooms. Like this was the best, the most cost effective option. They all had shortfalls, but 3 and 4 classrooms, that shortfall was larger than the 5 classrooms. So you're kind of at a, okay, do you completely kill the program and not receive any of the, like the TK funding and the ECAP funding? Or do you go for the option that is the best cost option and you're serving, because was it?
84.
And you're serving 84 kids and providing 10 jobs. So that's kind of where we landed and why we landed there. I think it would, not to say, I think it would just take a pretty big shift to go away from a program once you start that program. And
with choice students, sorry, we try to fill from within first. And so we're holding off on some of the choice applicants until we have a better understanding of how many of our within the school district students we get to serve. And that's true for all of our brand new choice students, is we kind of hold off on accepting them and we get closer to the fall, so that you can see what enrollment is, where we have space, and if we have room for the students. Our, what I'll call legacy choice students, the ones who have been admitted 4 years ago, they're included in our enrollment, so we just roll those up here.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard for me to, as we've mentioned before, we don't have a lot of revenue streams in Meridian. We fund through levy dollars and tax dollars, so to share that we have a shortfall of $143,000 and we have out of district kiddos coming in, that's a hard sell.
But we receive revenue for our choice students. We receive the same amount.
But would we, if
For our
they're cutting
choice students.
TK? We're not, if they're cutting funding for TK, I would assume that would apply to those choice students.
I see
correct?
what you're saying. The funding matches the number of students we get.
Yeah.
So the reason when we had 44, but now we have 26, we only get funding for those 26. So what we did is we added 20 ECAP to be able to make up that difference. So the way that, I think what I hear you saying is, where's that shortfall coming on TK? Where it came from is 26 more of TK students not coming to Meridian. So we backfilled with 20 students at ECAP so that we're able to serve the same amount of students. It is still the best investment in money that we could provide for our students in this district, to spend funding on students that are being remediated. I would say you're going to get much better investment of the funds that we have in the district. And we're still able to balance a budget by using early learning for that area than you were going to do remediation. So.
And then one more topic on the expenditures. As part of that district-wide budgeting, it was determined that we needed another special education teacher at Ryder. And what this does is this brand new teacher will help caseload in the collective bargaining agreement. If a special education, they have caseloads. So as a special education teacher, I have, and I'm throwing this out because I don't know it off the top of my head, let's say I have 30 students on my caseload, and that's my capacity. And if I go up to 32, then they receive 125 each for those 2 additional students. So we have some, prior to adding this teacher, we have some special education teachers that I would rather who were over their caseload considerably. And so while it is extra dollars funds for that staff member, that's also extra IEPs, that's also extra time, and that leads to burnout. And so by adding this special education teacher that takes down that caseload, we can identify this one, I believe, will be for early learning to support that group as well. And so caseload reduction, and then also targeting a specific population. And that's a summary of the expenditures.
Questions about staffing before we move on to the non-staffing costs? Yeah. Okay, okay, so on the MSOC side of things, that just basically stands for anything that's not salary and benefits. I think it's material, supplies, and overhead costs. I think everybody's aware that inflation's just insane right now. Everything costs more. There's some areas where we know costs more that we didn't add more budget to it because we just didn't have it available to balance the budget. And so, in some ways that does act as a reduction because you're working with the same amount of money even though it costs more. And so your purchasing power is less. So that is a real thing that we will feel next year. And have been feeling the last couple of years. I wanted to include, there's some really specific areas that cost are that went up incredibly high. The risk pool went up 48%. So that's $275,000 that we had more that we're spending next year on the risk pool than we spent this year. I'd say if you're gonna pull positive, the one positive thing about this is we did get a final number before adopting the budget, so we could build this in. So it's not something that we have to solve next year. We've already solved that. The money is set aside to pay those bills. Fuel, we budgeted for a 24% increase from where we budgeted last in 25-26. Now that doesn't necessarily mean that's from budget. So we know fuel has already gone up in cost. So we're already spending more than we were expecting to spend. This would probably be an area that I feel fortunate that we do have some money set aside in case there's some overruns in the fund balance, because honestly, I don't know if this would be an area that I think mid-year or towards the end of the year, we might be running out of fuel budget. That is a possibility. Even from when we set the budget, it feels like fuel's going up more and more since then. Utilities. All of the utilities went up, most notably is Puget Sound Energy they're projecting a 15% rate increase in January. Unfortunately, that'll hit everybody, not just the school district. Utilities will be another thing that we're gonna have to watch really closely next year. Because I really looked at specific lines and tried to estimate what we need. There isn't really capacity. There isn't like an extra amount in there. It's really our best estimate today on what it's gonna cost next year. Similar to how we treated everything within this budget period. Food, we're increasing 27% from the prior year. Just the, obviously the cost of food, but also serving more meals. Question on those ones? Oh, another. Okay. Also in the MSOCs, okay, so here's those numbers that we talked about earlier, the out of state, both of these items are, we say safety nettable. So it means they cost over $40,000 for that individual student, and we can get some of those money back. And we have budgeted for the revenues. On the expense side, student placements, we budgeted $315,000, Welcome Discoveries $320,000. One of the exercises after we had that initial moment of we were short $2.5 million, I spent over 8 hours just going through every single budget line within the budget and looking at a 5-year trend and where we've spent, and any line item that I could make a reduction in that I felt that we could absorb, and we weren't spending that money. I made a reduction. I was able to reduce $500,000 that way, and that's directly saves jobs and helped us balance the budget. If you going through that process, every department got some form of a reduction. It's not an equal, it wasn't like, okay, we're cutting 10% from everybody. It was more looking at where we're actually spending the money, where we need to spend the money, and anywhere that there's some capacity to reduce, I reduced. But it will impact some departments more than others, and I'm kind of working through some year-end spending on those departments right now, looking at some money some budget capacity that we have this year in 25-26 to do a little bit of spending, like some pre-purchasing for consumables and that type of thing to help them out next year. And then if it continues, we'll watch it, see how next year plays out. And if there are areas that are struggling more with this reduction, then we can adjust in the following budget year. This slide is here because it's legally required to be here. And a number of years ago, the legislators added some money to MSOCs, and I guess they thought that districts weren't gonna spend all that money on the MSOCs. So now you have to do this comparison of what the state funds you for your MSOCs, again, your non-employee costs, to what you're budgeting to spend. The state funds us for about 2.5, and we spend about almost 4.6. So that's a shortfall of $2 million. If you look at just those 4 items, 2 slides ago, that's $2 million in MSOCs, and just utilities, fuel, food, and insurance. So it adds up quickly. The ASB fund, I feel like we have a very solid budget here. I don't think there's any risk of us exceeding our budget authority. So the revenues are at $406,000, expenditures at $432,000. That's a $26,000 shortfall. You will see a shortfall sometimes in ASB if the high school or middle school are planning on spending some funds that they built up. So you would have some built up revenues and you'd spend that in a later year. Also, the middle school has just been kind of struggling on figuring out how to generate revenue within the ASB. It's hard to do fundraising now, at that age group. And so it's something that, they're working through. One of the reductions that we made in that $500,000 that I reduced in MSOCs, when we got rid of fees for ASB cards, we were backfilling that. So with the general fund, that backfilling has gone away. So that's $16,000, 10 at the high school, 6 at the middle school that they will not be receiving from the general fund. And so that's something that we're gonna have to keep an eye on as well.
Is there a reason it went away? Charging for speaking?
Yeah, to reduce barriers. And some districts have done that and to increase student participate, things that happen at school. Some districts, like we said, we've had other districts who are in more difficult financial circumstance than us, that they're reinstituting fees. And so that might be something that we have to, but the reason why we reduced them is to reduce barriers.
We've had pay to play and we've had ASB.
Yeah, but probably not for 6 years. Yeah.
So that's something that we'll probably need to evaluate next year in the budget process to see if the ASB is struggling and they need those funds. And if so, maybe we reevaluate the fee schedule that we have. It's either that or, I mean, there's kind of 3 options. You evaluate if they're struggling, if one option, they're not struggling, it's okay, you don't have to do anything. They're struggling, then we would reevaluate the fee schedule and potentially add fees, or we would need to add that money back in from the general fund to support the ASB. And there's a little bit of that same kind of thing with high school fees as well, because they were charging fees and we no longer charge fees at the high school level.
The last time we charged for an ASB, was it like $20 a card or what was it?
I see it, but 20 or 30, I'm not sure. Somewhere in there.
I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Sorry.
It's all good.
You can go back.
6 years ago, no.
Right. The debt service fund, this one's pretty simple. So this is the only thing the debt service fund does is pay our bonds and collect levy funds to pay for those bonds. And so the bond payments that we have that we budgeted for here all related to the $17 million bond that was passed in 2010. So there's a couple more years on that. It expires in 2030. And you do see that the expenditures exceed revenues a little bit. That's just because you don't want that fund balance to go too high. There's kind of like a calculation that you do based on bond payments of, X dollars, you want to have a fund balance of Y. And so I work with the bond council on figuring that out and how much money we need to levy each year and whatnot. And this is kind of puts us in that sweet spot. Couple projects fund. This one's I guess a little bit more of a complicated topic. Just going through the table up top, the revenues are 8.3 million, expenditures 8.1. The other financing uses. So what this is this is that transfer out that I was talking about from the tech levy. So it gets budgeted in to come out of the capital projects fund. So of that 1.7 million, 1.1 are new levy dollars that we're collecting, and $600,000 of that are those savings that we have been saving for those devices. So the fund balance for the devices. Right now, the fund balance is estimated to be about 2.2 million, and then the change in fund balance is almost 1.6, leaving the fund with 640,000. So this, I think it makes more sense if I talk about what's in those dollars. There's the Wacom Early Learning Center. That's a $12 million project that's currently budgeted in the Capital Projects Fund. 40% of the project is budgeted in 26-27, and 60% would be budgeted in 27-28. 3.6 in revenue and 4.7 in expenditures. So you've got expenditures exceeding revenue because we've already collected some of those donations. The next one on there is the Skills Center. That's projected to be a $60 million contract that's funded by the state. If it gets approved, it'll be funded by the state. The expected start date is 28-29. So it's nothing in this year's budget, but in the 4-year budget, it would be in there. The district office and Whatcom County Skills Center classroom. I didn't realize those two projects were tied together. So I guess I'm a little confused about a statement that I'll make later on that, but that's almost 3 million. And that would be a 1-year project that would happen next year if that were to go forward. Then there's the capacity for district works, that's $500,000. So that would pay for like if something something broke, like for example, right now, and we're able to get a grant for that. So right now, Irene Ryder Building B roof. So we got a grant from the state to help us pay to replace that grant. So we're gonna end up paying $50,000 out of the capital project fund. The rest of that repair will be paid for up by this grant. And so it's that kind of thing. And because we had budgeted $500,000 in the prior year for this district works project, it allowed us to do this without a budget extension. Then there's the technology levy. We talked about that before. That's in there. Interest and SEPA mitigation fees are in there as well. So June 17th, we need to adopt a budget. And right now, there's a couple of projects in here that I know we're undecided on if we're moving forward right now. So I kind of see that there's like a couple of potential solutions. There's if you leave it the way it is and just have those projects in there as like a capacity, it doesn't mean that the board has to move forward with any of those projects. So that's one option of leaving as is. The other option is if you guys were to direct me to pull that, or direct us to pull those projects out of the budget so you can adopt, if that's what it takes to feel comfortable with adopting. And then if we are able to move forward with the projects, then we would have to do a budget extension to add those back in. So that's more cumbersome. But some form of a resolution on this would need to take place before, I want to bring a budget to you guys that everybody's okay with voting to approve. Does that make sense?
On the 17th.
On the 17th, that's. So I don't know if there's, any discussion on that or. But I at least wanted to bring that up.
Do you want me to explain what the classrooms are?
Yeah, that.
So a state proviso for 3 million does on one side 11 offices and conference room for district office. The other side has 4 classrooms so that we can start. It takes about 3 months to put this up because it's modular. We can start providing additional skill center classrooms or programs right away. We knew when we applied for the skill center, it would take 4 to 6 years to get it going. So it allows early childhood ed, maybe surge tech, something that doesn't require a lot of equipment. the classrooms are already there, and then once the skill center property gets built, those 4 classrooms can be used for district training. You can get your school board room back, things like that.
And where did all of that funding come from?
That was a state proviso, working with Joe Timmons and the state budget committee,
So
not tax dollars.
but not connected to, you were saying you were surprised it was connected to
I
something.
didn't think it was connected to the Wacom, health department in any way.
It's not.
Okay.
It's connected to the skill center. So it provides 4 classrooms for the skill center.
Okay. That's what I thought, but when you were presenting earlier, speaking to the 15 million.
No, I was just talking about how much I've secured for the two programs.
So I don't, doesn't sound like there's an issue with that project. Ready for the next slide? Okay. It's all smooth sailing from here. A transportation vehicle fund, revenues, we have budgeted at 301,000, expenditures we have at 250,000. Which would increase the fund balance by 51,000. Beginning fund balance is 460,000. So that would we budgeted to go up to 511 at the end of the year. So the rules have changed as far as the depreciation payments. So taking a step back, the transportation vehicle fund receives depreciation payments for every bus that we have on the depreciation schedule. And then we use those funds to buy buses. That's it. It's the only thing it does. It is allowed to pay for major equipment breakdown, like, transmission or engine failure. You typically don't want to do that because then you won't have enough to buy your buses, like to keep replacing your buses. So we're kind of taking it easy and only buying 1 bus this next year. Because we want to really give the new depreciation payment schedule time to flush itself out. And then we can kind of make sure we have the best replacement schedule going forward for the future years. Questions on TVF? One of the things that we have to do is a 4-year budget. This is called the F-195F. I'm still working through this and the review with the ESD, so I don't have that for you today, but I'll have that on the 17th to go, I'll go over that. I won't run through this whole budget. If there are any changes, I'll let you guys know, but otherwise I'll just run through the F-195F and we'll do the budget hearing and whatnot. Questions? Thanks for hanging in there. It's late. I know.
Sorry.
Yeah, sure.
Speaking of feeling, and I don't expect you to know off the top of your head, but I had a conversation with a parent and she brought up a great question and I wanted to get some clarity on the technology fund. I know that you and Joe mentioned that we're getting new devices this next month, I guess it is, that we secured in February. And we locked it in at a great price. Thank you. Awesome foresight on that. Do we have that delineated by where those if those devices are going to specific departments or by grade level, or how do we separate those?
Yeah. Do you want to speak to that, Joe? I mean, I could probably wing it, but.
Yeah, so we shifted with the levy to doing all of our devices en masse. So that way we have a consistent platform for every kid. And so it's been efficiency for both our technical side and our teaching staff. So you know that everybody has the same, makes curriculum easy to adopt it. So this is all of our student devices.
Okay. So every device throughout the whole district is being replaced?
All of our Chromebooks. We should clarify on that. We do still have iPads that are K1 or TK1.
Okay.
Those are not scheduled for replacement, but all of our student Chromebooks are slated for replacement this fall.
And what grades do we provide Chromebooks for?
2nd through 4th.
Okay. The the conversation that I had with a parent from an optometrist perspective and concerns about having iPads and Chromebooks at early ages. And I'm kind of wondering what amount we allot for technology and iPads specifically for pre-K, kindergarten, first grade. And then it sounds like second grade is when the Chromebook starts. So moving forward, if we aren't updating our lease agreement for the iPads, when does that come up for discussion?
So we own all of our devices, so we don't lease. We did lease initially just to get us because we got the devices before our actual levy funding actually started. So we did have to lease, but we no longer lease devices. Right now, the replacement cycle on the iPads is more driven by iOS updates, and our curriculum is driven. So right now, we are still okay that the iOS updates have stopped at the previous version, but the devices still function fine. And our curriculum software hasn't been updated to require a newer iOS version. And so we kind of chase both our vendors and Apple as far as when we replace them.
Okay.
So we are expecting that we will be able to use the iPad for another year. But then by the 27-28 school year, we'll have to look at some form of replacement.
If we want.
If we want electronic
And then
pre-K.
there'll be a conversation had with the building and with
And there
curriculum.
was at this round as well, like we've had that conversation.
Okay, that's great to know. I would love to, or look forward to 2027 to talk about what that would look like. Thank you, appreciate it.
Okay. So let's do this as fast as I can. May enrollment compared to April is about the same. The May compared to the budget, or we're basically flat, or we're down 8 from the core, up 8 for MP3, as we talked about earlier. Special ed's up 33, that's pretty big. Running Start was up as well. I don't know how to do this without breaking it. I'm just.
Joe's still here, so you're okay.
All right, let's make this a little bit bigger. Okay, we won't spend much time on this in either. I'll probably talk about some year-end finance stuff more next month when I haven't already talked for an hour. April, we're looking at April. April's our tax month. So you see big taxes coming in, 2,461,000. You'll see taxes coming in for the debt service fund and the capital projects fund. As well, it's a big revenue month for the district because of that. 5.1 million right here in the blue. On the expenditures side, salary and benefits were about average. It was a huge accounts payable month, $933,000. As you can see, compared to the other months, that's quite a bit more. We paid Whatcom Community College and PTC for our running start for winter. And then we also paid the insurance pool. So those are the 3 expenditures that really jacked that up. So total expenditures 3.5, and we're a little bit below the budget percent actual, and ending fund balance is about 4.7. This will be like after April hits, that's always the high water, and you kind of spend down from there. I'm doing just one thing to point out. So if you look at July, $1.5 million is in here for AP, and that accounts for those $1 million in technology devices. And then it's a bit higher for August. I'm basically planning on really managing our year-end spending to try to spend as close to our budget capacity as possible, because there's quite a bit of needs right now, and especially we can do some spending to help offset the budget reductions that we're doing next year. So those are kind of the higher priority items of things that either help with areas that were cut, or if we're adding efficiencies that will save us money in the future, and that's kind of what I'm looking at right now. Questions?
Does that spending happen before June 17th? Like, or no?
It kind of happens in waves where like right now I'm approving some year-end spending for the schools because their staff are gone. So they kind of get to go first, but they're also, their asks aren't as high dollar values. You know, they're asking for money for paper and stuff like that. You know, it's not the same as, like some of the
That's great.
repairs and things that we're doing across the district or whatever. You know, so it'll kind of, most of it'll happen. I need to let the dollars kind of fall into place first before I make some approvals. So there'll be maybe a little bit more that I approve in July. And then like a final wave in August. After I'm able to close July to figure out how much money we have. It's kind of a big task if you're actually spending at year end. But it's an important thing to do to manage your fund balance at the end of the year as well. Okay. Thank you.
That's a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. We're so fortunate to have you.
Yeah, I'm happy to be here. Okay, so.
Thanks for taking that away from your family to drive over here.
Oh, yeah.
So
My
we
pleasure.
appreciate that.
So do I have to like
Can you help
how do I get it back? You just teach me because I do it every time.
One of the things I learned about WASDA in November was how many districts across our state don't have a black budget.
Do you have the?
So that's incredible that you're able to bring us there. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah,
Nice job, dude.
appreciate it.
Rebecca. I'll be fast. Really a couple things. Every year we get the opportunity to recognize students and community leaders. And so this year, for the different things that Logan's been involved in and leading throughout the year and before, we recognize Logan Ignacio as our student leader. And then our community leader. It just made sense to make sure that we went ahead and recognized Marty for his years of dedication to the board. And then Career Connect Northwest is a group based in the ESD down in Anacortes Education Service District in Anacortes, and they do things to help kids understand, well, up to 30 years old, but understand how it is that what they're doing in school can connect to careers. So a good example for us is the last couple of years we've had the career fair here at the middle school. They put that on. So they worked with Jill or they worked with Robert to put that on. They also convene, this is a group that it's the third time. And so K-12, post-secondary, higher ed, and then economic development groups. When we think about what we've done with Limitless, so we're working with Sean, we're working with the high school and beyond plan to help students understand what it is that they have aptitude for, not just a passion, but what are they good at? What things might be of interest to them. It could be school, it could not be school, it depends. You know, there are different ways to explore. So that work fits really well with hearing what employers need and then being able to work with. We had presidents from Whatcom, Skagit, Western, BTC, Whatcom, Skagit County, represented. And so this is the group. And then trying to think. So Dr. Harville was there, and then myself, we were the only K-12 system. We also had Lynette Brower of the Northwest Career and Education Technical Academy, because that is the only one north of Snohomish. And then the rest are all folks that are either part of EDASC, which is down in Skagit, or Whatcom County. They have report and really just talking about what is it that we need to do to help position students so that they can take advantage. The Gates Foundation was there. And so it's interesting that out of all K-12, we were the only ones there. Wow. And so to be able to be in that conversation is really, it's helpful. So, and then some things come up. Graduation's next week at 6 o'clock. We need to convene in the district office and we'll walk over. 6:30 start. And then we have the last day of school on the 10th. And then superintendent's meeting on the 11th, and then the last board meeting there on the 17th that I'm involved in, and then the summer conference. So that's what I have.
And both of our representatives are qualified for state, so that's why they're not here tonight.
That's right.
Yeah, so cool.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Cool, no student board representatives here. Any information from board directors?
Absolutely. I have to admit, I'm a little disheartened. We only had one person apply for the board over the past, I guess week and a half, since we met last. My kids and I knocked on almost 200 doors in District 4. Great, quite great opportunity, and it was so much fun. Getting to see my neighbors, got invited into a lot of homes and just got stuck sitting in their living room chatting for a long time. But a lot of District 4 is 55 plus, and a lot of people that I spoke to are just like, you know, I am retired and I only live here during the summer, or I serve my time on these boards. I'm just burnt out. So it was discouraging. And it's reflected by the application that we saw. I'm blown away that we just had one. And not as sweet. She volunteers regularly with the Coronado Neighborhood Association. I'm thankful that she was willing to step up when the time called, but I can understand everyone's reservations there. So I look forward to learning what happens next after that. I guess it's no secret. I mean, I ran for this board position because I feel very, very strongly about community engagement. And I currently am a voting member on 7 boards, president of 2 of those. Boundaries, I don't know how to say no, that's something I'm working on, but in all of the boards that I've ever served on, I will say that I have never experienced a time where we did not allow members of the public to comment if they were in the room. And that's something I feel very, very strongly about, talking about the importance of community engagement and allowing people to speak and share their knowledge with us. I think is so incredibly valuable. We only meet every other week, and it is a trek to come out here. And if somebody is willing to take the time and make their way up here, if they're a few minutes late, but they still make it here by the time that agenda item is up, I think it is so valuable that we still allow their voice to be heard. And I think moving forward, if it's maybe what we need to do is talk about the policy in our public comment procedures. So maybe that we can all be on the same page about how to move forward with that. Jared, you are in a very honorable position as chair, and we respect you, and we appointed you as chair because we trust that you're going to be able to pivot at a moment's notice. And we gotta trust that you're the right choice for us. That's my piece.
Thank you. Cool. Yeah, I'll also say that I know that we talked about some topics tonight that some of us don't disagree on. But I would like to, in today's society, civil discourse can get very aggressive and yelling and screaming. I just want to say that I'm very proud of all of us for communicating in a professional manner. And at the end of the day, we might not agree, but we'll all have our own voices and hear each other out. So I think that was great and that was meaningful. So thank you, everyone.
Cool. So moving forward in terms of application, what do we do?
I believe the deadline is the 13th of June. We don't have a board meeting in between that. So I will reach out to Dr. Govanko, who is the ESD superintendent, and probably set up a meeting with him and you, Jared, to talk about what the process would be. I don't know. I haven't been in this position before, so find out and then I get back to you.
Cool.
That's all right.
Yeah.
Is this I mean, in finding creative solutions moving forward, when you do have that discussion, would it be, what are you talking about an at-large position?
I think that could be something, and it came up before.
Someone brought it up,
Yeah,
so.
so I know another district in the county moved to an at-large system. There are other districts who have, they redistribute the director districts that have one that's at large. I think that, the fact that we have this experience now is a reason to say, hey, let's pursue what that could look like, and that could also be a conversation. I wonder what Dr. Vivanco would recommend, whether to do that now or to place somebody and then do it afterwards. I'm not sure. So, but it certainly can be part of that conversation.
I'm traveling Monday and Wednesday. So in Seattle at 1 o'clock, so I should be back, but Thursday, Friday, for this week. Yeah.
Can everyone make this a graduation?
Oh, yeah,
As long as I'm not ready somewhere.
you're the only one that is probably gonna have
A
what you want to.
Oh, yeah.
Honest to goodness, with that whole class, I would take the whole class, right? Like, those are my people.
So let us know.
We've also done before, where, like, we've had two, like, if there's one or two people in a row, the other director can hand one out and you can do your special people, so have two people up there.
You guys have that figured out.
Yes.
That'd be great.
Okay, without further ado, we will end this meeting, sign official documents, and adjourn. Thank you so much.